the June 26th special council meeting budget workshop. Call to order, and now do the pledge of allegiance. To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Robin Aki. Present. Councilmember Marv Beam.
Here.
Councilmember Dave Gaddis.
Here.
Councilmember Rita Swope. Here. Vice Mayor Glenn Gunn.
Here.
Mayor Joseph Manzo.
Present.
City Manager Lynn Reeves.
Here.
Finance Officer Melanie Cruzona. Here. And Councilmember Jody Shirley has not yet arrived.
We have two items on tonight, which is the discussion and the review of the operating budget sections and the discussion of the city attorney selection process. Dave Gaddis, though, mentioned that you had something that you wanted to add.
Yes, as most of you probably have seen in the news, Riviera Beach was basically held hostage with a cyber attack. Kind of give you guys an idea of what happened is somehow or another the attackers got in on their network and they encrypted every single data file on their network. Now it sounds like something that you could just call a good IT guy and he would remedy the problem. But the problem is whenever there's an encryption key that's about this long, it would take dozens of computers, dozens of years to decrypt what happened to their data. So unfortunately for Riviera Beach, they had no choice but to pay the ransom of $600,000. Now, there's no guarantee that that couldn't happen to us. But what I am aware of is that there's insurance available for such an attack. I highly recommend that we do a little research before we finalize the budget and find out exactly what it would cost to insure the city of Bel Air Beach from a cyber attack, and then include that into the budget so that if we have to pay a ransom, at least the insurance company picks up the tab and not Bel Air Beach. Also, I have a good friend in the insurance industry who's pretty high up, and she said that cyber attacks are the #1 payoff currently with all insurance claims. And they are hitting small cities like Riviera Beach left and right, and they're collecting cash big time. So,
There's no guarantee that once you pay a ransom, they're going to undo what they did.
actually, they got their data back.
Okay, but that luckily, because
Well,
they necessarily...
here's the deal. I've actually spoken with several people about this, including some forensics people and just people in the business all the way around. And basically, if you do it to one person, they pay the money and you don't give them the decryption software, no one else is going to do it. So literally, as soon as they write the code, dump it on your computer, they actually know how to decrypt it, give you your data back. So, yeah, they might pull off this massive heist one single time, but the minute that they realize that they paid the money and get nothing back, it's not going to happen again. So,
Makes sense.
that's pretty much what's going on. And I just wanted to make everyone aware of it, and I think it's something that this council should seriously consider.
Dave, I think that brings up a point that I know I do in my business. I have triple backup. I have a hard backup of my files, and then there's an off-site backup. So, and I went through a point where somebody was trying to take my data, not an outsider, but my former spouse, and I said, I don't care what you do, you can burn my computer if you'd like, because everything is maintained out on the cloud. So you can blow my computer up tomorrow if you want. I go out and buy another computer, and I can load all of that stuff back up. I don't know what we have in terms of generations of backup, but there is a protocol for this in terms of having first generation, second generation backup with routine backups, so that even if they encrypted your entire system, you could basically say, keep it, and you just reset it from the night before. I mean, my stuff is set up daily, so the most you're ever gonna do is knock out maybe what I'm working on an hour or two ago, and, go ahead, I don't care, that I could redo.
I'm going to add a comment to that also, as far as, yes, definitely, redundant backups are definitely a good idea. However, there's no one here that is capable of undoing the damage that was done to Riviera Beach. So whenever you call in a forensics team to actually clean up the damage, you're still looking at 50 to 100 grand in IT charges to basically put everything back the best way you possibly can. Often it requires things like completely reloading a computer from scratch and just basically starting over. You may get your data back, but you may not have a working computer. So,
We'll look into that. And, I mean, we do back up, but if we think we need to, the IT consultant that we use is looking into backing it up in the cloud also. I spoke to him on Monday.
I
Yeah,
already got that to the plans.
yeah, all this stuff is backed up, so.
Is our system compartmentalized, or, I mean, in some places, there are portions of their computer system that don't even touch the internet, it's a standalone system, never touches anything?
in the event of a computer that's not connected to the internet, that's a different case. You're safe, at least until you put a thumb drive or a CD or something like that into it. Even in the case of backups, a lot of times it's more of a timing issue. What's your timing, your schedule of your backups? How often are you backed up? And how many times is that backup backed up? And in the case of Riviera Beach, they were not aware of what was going on because the hacker was actually logging in to computers that no one was using. And they were hitting anything that someone was not in for that very moment. So you go out to lunch, you lock your computer, well, they could see what was happening, and then they would go in and do the damage. In the case of a server, it's just sitting out there and holding data, no one would know it. They just knew that they couldn't get to a file for some reason and was waiting for the IT team to show up and do something about it. Whenever the IT guys showed up, there was a nice ransom letter contained within the servers that said if you'd like to have your data back, it's all here, but it's encrypted, and the only way you'll get it is through me.
All right. Any other comments on this? I was asking if there were citizen comments. We haven't had an IT expert here, so. You're good? Okay. All right, let's move on then to, did you have a priority here? You want to go 1-2 or 2-1?
Tonight, we're going to go through the mayor and council's budget, the clerk's budget, the city manager's budget, finance, IT, law enforcement, code enforcement, and sanitation. For the most part, all that's in them is salaries. There's a little bit of travel here and there, but for conference stuff. So what I'm going to do is we're going to start with the mayor and council's budget, and Patty's going to go through that with you. If you got any questions or things you have questions about, or feel there needs to be some adjustments, we'll go on from there. So, Patty?
Okay, first is the travel and per diem. So for each one of your conferences, the Board of League of Cities, the Suncoast League of Cities, the EMOs, there's 3 attendees or 2 attendees for the EMOs. So that's what that shows. So and then if we don't know where they are yet, we just kind of estimate, I have to estimate the mileage and everything. But if you decide that you want more or less attendees, you just have to let me know, okay? And then the others are just smaller things as I go down. the miscellaneous. The biggest thing in there is the council and staff dinner and the videotaping. So, and then our annual Florida League of Cities advertising. So, any questions on that sheet?
There was no advance email in this year, in 18, 19. We didn't do the advance stuff this year. The regular email in 18?
Is that a question?
Yeah, I guess that's.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because there wasn't a lot of interest or people had already attended, so that's why it dropped down until when council turned over. Now we're putting in more. Does that answer?
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, there were people interested, but I guess we got the ball and the scheduling of it with the people. It filled up so quickly, we didn't get in.
Oh, you're talking about the one?
advanced.
Yeah, right.
Is that what we're talking about?
And that never happened before, that has never happened before, so, yeah, when it does, when we get notice of them, we need to jump on it right away and get in there, because, yeah, apparently, they're filling up fast now.
Is there anybody from here going to the regular, the basic animal this time now?
The mayor's going, and, yeah, you're not going to the basic, you already went to basic, right? Yeah, no, just me,
Just
so far.
yeah, I highly recommend it. It's good training. Gives everybody a good step.
Patty, I have a question here on the videotaping. We're spending $8,850 to videotape these meetings. Now, videotaping's not difficult, okay? We can do it with a basic camera. But is that also including closed captioning, which is something we probably can't do on our own?
Well, the closed captioning, we haven't even went there yet. I looked into it through Clearwater, Councilmember Gass had brought that up at one point about the captioning. I talked to them, and they're spending $30,000 plus a year for just the captioning, not the video. This is for
Just video only?
just video only, and he does some editing for it. We increased it from the prior year because the meetings, he has a fee for, additional hours, because how his contract is set up, it's 2 hours of videotape per meeting, and then he takes it and has some time to edit it, to kind of clean it up, because there's always issues before. He sends it back to us, but there's no captioning on it.
So is it just basic video?
Yeah.
I mean, consideration would be just to pick up a tripod and a camera, which is not expensive, and just let it run. Somebody might have to turn it off if we have a break, but we only started doing those. Other than that, you have a digital copy that's pretty much ready to go and can be uploaded to your internet and really.
Well,
no cost. And it won't be as good as what you have now,
Yeah, because he has to adjust volumes and things like that on it. And I don't know, how long has Victor been doing that? Several years?
Right.
I mean, years ago, the city used to have its own TV station that was run by volunteers, and I think that kind of fell apart. There's a lot of cities that, or several I know in the area, don't even videotape. They basically do audio. Beller's a good example, they don't videotape anything, but they do an audio tape.
An audio tape is working off of our system with the microphones,
Yes.
regularly, right?
Yeah.
Transparent.
Yeah, so, you're gonna get what you get with somebody just punching a button on a camera. It's not gonna be edited, the voices may, or the volumes and stuff may not be cleaned up. And he turns it into I don't know which, I'm not an expert on that, I just know what he's told me. And then he converts it so they can put it up into YouTube. And I don't know how that works at all.
Do they need to be videotaped? Is that
No.
like a requirement, or is it just a convenience?
No, it's, the TV station started, which we'll talk about a little later. The equipment is 10-plus years old, and it's outdated. And there's no requirement to videotape.
Who's using just the audio system?
Huh?
Who's using just the audio system?
Bel Air's using just the audio system.
I mean, is it working for them? I mean, is it a feasible option for us to cut out the video editing plus the closed captioning and just go to the audio? And
Well, then you wouldn't need anybody because Patty is taping it right now.
What are we doing with this other than placing it on YouTube right now?
That's it.
That's it,
So if we did audio, where would you put it?
on the
on
website?
the website.
Does that make us ADI or ADA compliant?
But we're not with the video.
That's the
Well, we're
question.
not with the video.
Well, with audio also, that's even worse.
I don't know. I mean,
Can't hear it.
No, I know, but isn't there stuff out there where people are hearing impaired?
See, that's the thing, is that if there's not a whole lot of difference as far as audio goes. You can see it, but you can't read it. You can't read people's lips, they're looking the other way. But if you do, you're gonna have to have something to translate that over if we put it on our website.
Well, we do translate it over with the minutes. In essence, we
Could you
do.
post them at the same time? Because I know it takes a little bit to do the minutes. Could you post them on the internet at the same
Not
time?
at the,
Not
no.
meant like the same day, like you post the audio and then also the minutes?
Well,
'Cause I'm just thinking, if you post the audio the day before, they can say, oh, this day it's not ADA compliant, but then when you post the minutes the next day, then it's,
Yeah, minutes aren't
Technically.
exactly the same thing. And I think all we're responsible for is minutes. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, we're not, but we still need to record, so Patty can do
could we
that.
record and just not post it? Just keep it for later use if
Another
needed?
problem with recording versus video is you don't know who's speaking. We've got citizens coming in, I know they're supposed to announce who they are, but the minute that we have a comment or anything else, we don't say, this is Dave Gaddis, and here's my comment.
I mean, if it came down to it, we could start, I mean, it's a pain, but if we, I'm just
Just
trying
some
to.
things to think about.
No, I know,
It's really a backup for the minutes, right? I mean, there's no legal requirement to videotape or anything.
No.
I mean, the only legal requirement is for the minutes.
Right.
And even those don't have to be verbatim, so all it really is.
Well, you've always got the recording as a backup.
That's what I'm saying, it's just a backup for the minutes.
Yeah.
The recording would be available if someone wanted to listen to it, right? They could come here and listen to your recording. I mean, you're just taping it off that little tape recorder, it's not like we have a sophisticated system or anything,
No,
right?
no, she just.
So it's directional, that's just gonna get, like, Lynn's gonna come out a lot louder than I am probably right now.
Actually,
But
the
these aren't
Jack
permanent retention.
system here.
Recordings aren't
You just
permanent
plug right
retention,
into our
audio
audio
recordings.
system.
Okay,
Like your minutes are permanent,
right,
audios are not.
so you're not keeping the,
Not over, what do we like? We keep a couple years. of it.
I keep mine longer, but yeah, you're not required to keep them.
No, because you can.
Now, is video in any way a liability?
I think if we're doing it without the closed captioning, I mean, I think if we're gonna start posting on the internet, Dave's right, and then, I think, we're not required, okay? Bottom line, Florida requires that you take minutes, so we take our minutes and that's it, that's what's required. Now, if somebody misses the meeting and they wanted to hear it, we've been posting just on our council meetings, like tonight's meeting's not videoed, so
Right.
you couldn't see tonight, and there's a lot of work done on these sessions. But I mean, this is a $9,000 expense over here, and maybe growing, so
And
I
then
don't know.
I'm looking at this upgrade estimate and
Well, that's something else I'll be discussing.
right, no, I understand, but I'm just saying, but I understand it's 10 years old, it's something that's gonna have to be done if you're gonna keep videoing, so.
No, that has nothing to do with
Oh,
video.
never mind. But still, it's $8,000 that could be used elsewhere. Especially also with the ADA thing, if the video is gonna put us at a disadvantage with the ADA compliance or require more money in order to make it ADA requirement, up to date, and it's not a legal requirement.
Right, you're darned if you do and darned if you don't. I mean, if you don't do it, you're not giving everybody who can't make the meeting the opportunity to see what happened. However, if you do it, then you have to pretty much do it right, which is full ADA compliance, which we're not really there at. I thought maybe there was some closed captioning, but there's no closed
Oh,
captioning.
we did try to do it with, YouTube has the ability to do it, but unfortunately, how I say horse, somebody from, and I'm I'm just gonna use Boston because I have a friend, he says Haas. So the word doesn't come across the same. So what ends up happening is the wording that shows on the bottom is kind of broken up. Because we did try that. And
So what you're saying is Siri is controlling it.
it's not.
Siri.
Do we want to keep this as a question mark item maybe for now? Everybody?
And one way of risk management is eliminate the exposure.
That's why I asked about liability, having the video out there, could that hold us for any event, incident?
It's like no good deed goes unpunished. So you go and be nice for folks that can't make it because you really want to help people who, keep them informed and say, here's what's there. But it's better to say, you know what, there is a tape copy of this. That's what we have. If you want to come in and listen to it or make a copy of it, you're welcome to come to City Hall and make a copy of it. But as soon as we get into posting it, we start getting into this whole ADA thing. And
I think you're gonna run into the same issue with audio versus video.
But only if you post it on.
But only if we post it,
Only if
right?
But
it's on the
if they
web,
come
right,
in
right.
and get a copy or
Yep.
sit
Come in
and
and listen
listen.
to it.
We publish the minutes, and if anybody wants more
But you
clarity,
approve the minutes
we come in.
at
Yeah.
the next meeting. So after you approve them, then that's when we post them. Patty converts them and puts
You
them
know,
up.
I mean, in the future, if it's something, I was even thinking, like, when you said the volunteers, I don't know, if a local high school, if they have an audio, visual, that can volunteer, or a sign language course where they can volunteer to do the sign language on the video. I mean, I don't know, just brainstorming.
Well, that's another issue. Somebody brought that up last time, although I still don't.
I wasn't
believe
trying to
that-
get back to that.
Yeah,
I'm
they
just
weren't
thinking
making a
ADA.
proper gesture, but whether they were or weren't, it brings up another issue with the whole idea of sign language. And, you do see it like when the governor is speaking, there's somebody behind signing. We don't have that, so if we're gonna broadcast it, again.
Well, that's what I was saying, if we've got to
And that's-
volunteer to do it for,
Yeah.
high school or for service hours, they have to have so many service hours sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just an idea.
The reason all this equipment was put in years ago was to claim so that people that weren't here for the summer could listen to or see the meetings. So whether that changed or the people complain and want it, who knows?
Well, the problem is not that we don't want to do stuff, we just don't want to get ourselves into this ADA lawsuit, by trying to be nice and posting it, and then we don't post it 100% compliant. Like this, I didn't realize the videos, my recommendation now, and I'm not your attorney, you have to get this from your attorney, but I think they're going to tell you probably pull the video down if it's not going to be closed captioned, because, Dave's right. If someone has a hearing issue, they're not going to be able to use that, right? So.
That's
I'm sorry, an eye issue, they can't see the video, so now you have to have something with the hearing. We're just not gonna be.
You can't win or lose.
You can't win, yeah. So that's why the other cities
Well, I
point
guess
out,
you could lose, but
Maybe,
which,
Until
as Glenn
that
said, that's one way of
resolves.
eliminating your exposure.
it may be a good idea to temporarily maybe remove the video until
Yeah.
some better plan or some solution, or this ADA thing gets resolved somehow legally.
The other thing was the,
be terminated. We have an agreement with the individual, but we can, I
It's
think
not a-
there's a termination clause in it, if I remember correctly.
Right,
I'll look into that, but
nothing against them, just,
yeah,
no, he does a good job.
yeah, it's ADA.
Okay.
Also, you had talked about with me privately, I guess, about the dinner, the holiday dinner and stuff like that, and I think that was something you were gonna bring up with everyone.
Yeah, I don't know what the thought process is of the group. We've been having a holiday dinner at Bel Air Country Club for many, many years, and it's, the employees have no druthers about having it or not, so it's really up to the council if they want to continue to do that, or we do maybe something here, or cater it, or what.
I'm okay with eliminating the council line. The staff, they can obviously and should have a holiday dinner, in my opinion, but I'm good with council eliminating it.
No, I agree. I think the idea is nice. It'd be nice to show our appreciation, which we certainly can do, but maybe we, for that one, not do it at somewhere like the Bel Air Country Club and maybe do something. I think the whole idea is more like getting together as camaraderie, not necessarily the bill.
Right, and I do something, but that's for the employees. For me, I take them out usually, was it like the day before Christmas or something? I don't even remember. take them to somewhere, I don't even know. where we went
McDonald's.
last time. Bonefish or E&D or somewhere.
You and I had talked about maybe a holiday luncheon like we do with the boards. The boards is a special luncheon once a year here, right here on lunchtime, and real nice, it's catered and everything, and that could even be stepped up, something nice for the employees, for the family, and that would actually get everybody, and if council wants to come, that's fine, but we're trying to keep tabs on our dollars, and it just doesn't sound right going to the country club.
Well, you don't want another city's country club to benefit. Not that anything's here to benefit, but I'm just saying, we want to save our money where we can.
Well, what if we leave, any of them, like $750 or something?
It's on.
If we took half of this money, and just set it aside for that.
Like a luncheon or.
Yeah, I'll just change the wording to holiday luncheon. So we'll do $750 and.
That's fair.
One more, and only because I happen to sit next to the mayor of Bel Air Shore today, and he said, thank you for hosting our Big C. That's nice. I didn't realize we were paying for that, though. I know we're hosting it, but do we pay for that? Or do we just host it? We're just hosting it in the room?
The only thing we do, and we've evidently done it for many years, we set up the room for them. They come in, and their clerk, actually it's a bar, pretty cheap, orders, caters, does everything.
They pay for it.
They pay for
Okay.
the money.
So what's this Big C breakfast?
That's ours. What happens
Ours is
on a monthly basis, it rotates, so
October.
that's our turn to host it.
Oh, okay.
That's what we get.
Yeah, ours is in October.
Okay.
So what was the final decision on the videotaping? Are we just holding that for now, maybe talk to Bel Air and see how everything's working for them?
Are you
Yeah.
posting it on their website?
Follow up.
Yeah, I'll talk to,
Yeah, see what they're doing with the closed captioning and.
well, no, they aren't. The last I talked to them, last time I talked to JP, but it's been a couple months.
Well, I mean, the
told
cyber
me.
attack just makes you think, if they got away with it in one city and get money from another city, they'll easily spread it out quickly amongst everybody.
So what I'm hearing from the council is, if, in essence, we would do away with videotaping and just record it and put the minutes up after you approve
Yes.
at this point, but I will give you some feedback at the next budget workshop, which is July 8th. on
Do
this.
you want to run that also past our legal, just to be doubly sure? I'm pretty sure it's just minutes only that's required by Florida, but just let's make sure. I don't think we have to have any other.
Yeah, it's minutes
I
only.
think so. Yeah. And people can always tape their own. I mean, if they want it, they can bring their phones, they can bring their things and tape away. It's perfectly legal to tape in this room.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Then the next page, the donations, those are, stay pretty much the same, so if there's no changes there, if you want to increase or decrease. And then their membership and publications, those are only the things that we use, so there would probably be no changes there because you still want to maintain your memberships. And then your registration fees for your conferences, and that's that page.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the donations? I didn't realize that as a city we were making donations, so just some information, some background.
The Mayor's Council, that one, it's $100 a year, and we just give them a check. Then the Neighborly Senior Services, Lynn, don't we have residents that benefit from that?
Yeah, some, and they haven't come to us this year, because usually what I would ask them for is, I want to know how many it is, first of all. But they haven't come this year, so.
It's usually per resident, they ask for,
A
it's like
number,
Meals
so.
on Wheels.
Yeah, yeah, that's really what it is. It's Meals on Wheels to deliver. So far, they haven't asked for any this year, which, I don't know, do you remember, Melanie, when they asked last time?
I called them the last time, they didn't call
Well,
us, to see how many we had.
yeah. And then the next item is the sheriff's shelter program, Safe Haven. And the city's been all the cities donate something to that every year. Some of the bigger cities, of course, give more money than we do. I don't know that we have a lot of people that participate in the Safe Haven, but when that opened, the sheriff went out to the cities and asked for a donation annually. So we've been doing that. And then the Wreaths Across America is a veterans thing that we've done for several years at Christmas break.
They lay the wreaths on the graves at
Bay
Bay
Pines.
Pines.
Is council good with continuing this?
Okay.
Okay, next page is 3. So that just shows my salary and all of the benefit, the package, so that's a total.
And I'm proposing a 3% pay raise to for the employees on their anniversary date. They did not get a pay raise last year. They got somewhat of a bonus that kind of had some unintended consequences because of how the money was set up, because it was, the money that was given to us last year was only given to us for their portion of the raise they would have got. As an example, if somebody started for us in October, their bonus was going to be a full year of an equivalent of a raise, okay? If somebody started with us in April, well, their bonus amount would only be the amount they would have gotten a raise from April to October, which in most cases was $500 or something limited. So, you know, it just kept going smaller. I've got 2 employees in June and they ended up with like $400. So, you know, I know I've talked to a couple of you about this. I think the bonus system that we utilized last year, if you're not wanting to give a raise, I think you got to plan for a 3% bonus based on their salary, as opposed to somebody getting, it amounts to, and I'm going to use Patty as an example, she would get 1 point, is it 1.8? Oh, that's because of the raise that was granted already, okay. Probably have to go somewhere else to what it's at. Well, I'll just use mine, how's that? My anniversary date is in March, so my raise is really 3% of the rest of the year. But then it continues into the next year. But the way the bonus was set up, you only got a portion of that. So, last year, the CPI index was right at 3%. And the current year, based on what the consultant that's working with me on the personnel manual and evaluations, she gave me a number that's going to be 3.2% this year. So, in essence, the other employees, other than Patty, are 6% behind what they would have normally got in CPI because they didn't get a raise last year. So I'm proposing that we at least give them 3% for this coming fiscal year. Or if it's your choice not to give them a raise, then we make the bonus 3% of the total salary. Up to.
Would that be for a prorated year, though? I mean, I think if I'm understanding you right, though, you had people who started in June last year and then they didn't get a full 3% on a bonus or something like that because they didn't have a full year. Now, that's not atypical if you have only a partial year to have a partial raise.
Yeah, but they've been here a whole 12 months.
They had been. Okay,
Yes.
so they didn't just start in June then.
Well, they started, not this month of June, they started a year ago in June, and their evaluation was June, because, you know, their annual evaluation. So, because their time frame was June to September, they were only eligible for like, one of them was 433.
Somebody got 320.
Yeah, so, you know, they ended up after taxes.
That was, what happened last year was kind of an unintended, unexpected consequence of carrying forward the process for a merit pay increase instead of a bonus. I've had this discussion, and I don't think that what was intended, that's the way it came out. Now, I think there needs to be an in-depth discussion on this issue because the big overarching question here is how sustainable can we keep compounding these salaries and benefits 3% every year ad infinitum? I mean, I'm looking through the rest of the budget and I see decremental declining budgets in our assets like the rental of this facility and the rental of marina slips. So how are we supposed to support this 3% compounding increase in salaries? I would recommend, and I'm not just pointing out the city clerk here, I'm saying across the board, we need to have an in-depth discussion, and it really links to this personnel manual review that we're kind of outsourcing to somebody without us sitting around the table and providing inputs to that stuff on job descriptions and how this organization is wired together, where the money comes from, where it's going, and what the expectations are. Because if the income and revenue is being produced by our very few number of assets that we have, this building, the marina, is going down, the only thing supporting these pay increases are, guess what? As my property values are increasing, that's what's supporting this. And I gotta say, what are we getting for our money here? So, I mean, I'm just gonna pitch that out and say, yeah, I'm not opposed to 3%, but I like the way it was handled last year. Let's take 3% of all pay and salaries, set it aside, and at the end of the year, decide how we're gonna do it. At the beginning of the year, you lay out expectations and performance for what you can expect from your employees. At the end of the year, well, how did you measure up? And okay, well, what value did you bring in? Well, you exceeded all expectations. Here's a merit bonus. I mean, I hate to be the bad guy in all this, but we need to have a very hard, serious discussion on some of this stuff. Because if you look at the portion of our budget that goes to salary, pay, benefits, and retirements, I mean, it's huge.
Well, I actually kind of disagree with you, Councilmember Vice Mayor Quingon, because the increases, the amount of work our people do for us is a crazy amount. I mean, they take on more responsibilities than a lot of other cities, city clerks, etc. And you get what you pay them for. I mean, their quality of their work is outstanding. And if we want to continue to have that type of service from our people, we need to pay them because everybody else gets increases at their companies. And I mean, it's a standard everybody's lived by, get an increase in pay. I mean, I feel like we should just give them an increase in pay.
I have a question for Melanie. If you combine everyone's increases, I guess it was in the form of a bonus, what would you say the average, if you equated that to a salary increase, what would you say the average would be for each employee?
It really depends on, are we talking about last year or this year?
Whenever the bonus was awarded.
Well, that would be for this fiscal year, not the budget we're working on. Some of it was less than 1%. Like, if I had received the full amount of the bonus scheduled for me, because my anniversary date is in May, it would come to 0.9%.
Okay, well, my take on this is we need to do better. We definitely owe more to the people that run this city. And, I don't know what the exact answer is, but I know that no one sticks around for a 0.9% salary increase for a full year of work, unless they're just grossly overpaid. And I don't think anyone here is grossly overpaid. I agree with Glenn that definitely we need to do some soul searching and some research on what we're doing, but I think it's completely unacceptable to allow this to continue happening just because we can't come to an agreement.
Well, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. The job descriptions need to be brought up. Our people do multitudes of different projects, multitudes of different facets of work. It's really not documented fully on paper with the job descriptions. And when that happens, then we can compare it to a county position and see where the pay is. And then, and only then, can you start to increase our people like the county, but we don't know where we're at. We have no clue, but
Are you saying that each employee is responsible for proving their self-worth, or is this an overall management job where it hasn't been presented well enough?
it needs to be reviewed. All the job positions, what they do, all their training, all the requirements for their jobs. I mean, they have multitudes of different tasks to perform, some are electrical, entering in closed circumstances, they have training for that. Fire training, life safety training. So you've got quality employees that are trained to do this. So you have to find out just where in the system being, this county, this area, where some of comparable qualifications, where we're paying our employees and what the county is paying theirs, and then come up with a consensus of where we're at. And whatever the county's doing for raises is what we should at least mimic. In some cases, maybe more, depending.
Lynn, didn't you provide us with something like that
Yeah.
last year?
Yeah, I gave you something from the human resources that kind of, it was a spreadsheet that kind of told you, okay, this is what all these positions are making, and this, that, and the other. And, it's a spread. It's usually a entry level, a mid, and max. What I've got the consultant doing is she's working on the personnel handbook. It will come back to me, and then I will bring it to you for your comments. Then we're going to work on evaluations with a process that, so you can, because the current evaluation is kind of hard to equate points to. So what I've asked her to do is create something that is more point-based, to be able to say, okay, if you have 60 points maximum, and you get 53, we'll just say, out of the 60, then you're eligible for 3%. If you get 43 out of the 60, then you're eligible for 2%. Because as far as the merit goes. And she's also going to look at the job descriptions, because as an example, certain people do more than really even their job description says. We've got, I'm moving some things around. Patty is going to take over the website. She's going to be the person in charge for it. She's the one that's converting the documents, so my feeling is we got to take the middleman out of it. But I took away from her the event rental because it was a struggle for her to do that because of her clerk duties. So Laura is going to pick that up. And yes, the revenue's down in event rentals. We're going to have to attack that differently, with the leads we get from the service that we use. I don't think the marina is down in revenue, not projected, because that's based.
It's just
Looking at
it's
your
down
graph.
a small bit because when we have non-residents renting, their
It's a
rental
higher.
is significantly higher, and we add, those move out and residents take over those slips. So it
So-
is slightly lower because residents are now using it, not non-residents.
So it's that changes with the flow of who's in there, whether it's a resident or non-resident. Unfortunately, I just feel that some of the employees deserve more than they were eligible for, and they didn't get it from the city. They got it from somewhere else, but they didn't get it from the city. So,
I accept all of this on face value, but for instance, I'm a data-driven guy. So when somebody says, hey, everybody's doing a great job, everything's wonderful and a high-quality output, that's all anecdotal. Show me the data and I'll be the first guy to say, your data supports it. Let's move forward and give everybody a 3% merit increase.
Well, I mean, I can see what everybody's saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm totally with Rita on this. I think our employees do way more than they should be, and they're not getting rewarded. I mean, think of how much money that Lynn has saved us by you guys doing the check valve as opposed to hiring that out. I mean, we have to take that into consideration too. That's extra work that they just did based on the job that they had before. They didn't get anything extra.
And
They saved us.
that's how you support all of
Right,
this.
that's how you.
You know, I'm all for it, and I'm the guy who said, yeah, you know, that's an easy one, that's a no-brainer. Kyle puts his stuff in, saves the city 10 grand, I'd write him a check for a $10,000 bonus. He saved the money.
Well, he got,
I mean, it's all part of that beneficial suggestion stuff.
But not everybody's job. If Patty takes on the website and, you know, Laura takes on I mean, they're not necessarily gonna save $10,000, but the extra work they're doing is still valuable in some way to the city, so you have to, it's not all about the dollars. So I mean, and like you said, I mean, if you're not appreciated, if you don't feel like what all the hard work you're putting in is, you know, recognized, appreciated, and valued, then what's the point of staying here? I can go get a miserable job somewhere else. Can you pay more? You know what I mean? Instead of being miserable here, they're here because they care about the city and they want it to do well. And we should be very grateful to them because our city would fall apart without everybody.
Yeah, and as far as bonuses go, I'm sure they appreciate the bonuses, but at the end of the day, they would appreciate a salary increase much more because it's permanent. You're basically, you're making them, you're putting them on commission for their responsibilities whenever you give them a bonus.
And they'll want to work harder, they'll want to do more, and they'll want to earn that next year. As opposed to, it's like, well, I didn't get anything this year, so what's the point?
I understand.
No, I know you understand.
But what I'm saying is don't equate working really, really hard with adding value to an organization. You gotta work smart too, right? It's not just putting in the extra hours, working hard, but if you don't see the value add and the revenues increasing and the productivity gains, then
What I'm seeing in the job market is most people are easily replaced for a higher salary almost every time. You can keep somebody around for a while, but whenever they leave, the new guy comes in and he usually costs more. I've also seen it where you run one person in the ground and give them too much responsibility and they finally bail out and you have to replace that person with two people because it was an absolute insane amount of work that was expected out of them. I think what would probably, I'm going to go out on a limb here, maybe you guys will agree with me. Maybe if we just saw what current responsibilities are for each employee are, just a brief list, major accomplishments for the year, something for us to digest and think about. And then that way we can discuss it in the next meeting and say, what do you think?
I want to wait, and I haven't said a word yet, so I tend to agree more with what I've heard from Glenn Gunn than what else I've heard. I'm analytical also, I'm started as a CPA, still am, and I want to see the data. Telling me you're doing great doesn't tell me anything, okay? I think some people are doing great, I think some people aren't doing great. I think other cities do great. There's other cities just as good as us, if not better than us. And I'd like to see how we stack up, and I'd like to see how the jobs stack up against them in terms of also where we're paid now and where they're paid. I think we have to be mindful of the fact, as Glenn said, that right now this is all being balanced on the back of the tax increase that I have went on record saying I'm not voting for. So we need to absolutely make sure that we have either revenue increases by either maximizing our other means of revenue, such as rentals of this building, whatever else we could do, or we need to just run a tighter ship, be closer. And Lynn and I have spoken about some stuff that may be changing, and I think he's going to give us some more information tonight. But we have to run as tight an operation as we can. I don't know that we are right now. And the same thing that I'm hearing about analyzing jobs and getting detail, I sat in that audience hearing the same thing when it was up for review last year. The council was asking for that same information. They weren't able to give raises, and reviews because they didn't have complete job descriptions and complete details, and the evaluation sheet hadn't been brought up to date in multiple years, I think, well over 10 years. So that needs to be worked on if we're going to hand out raises, because I do value the employees, I want to keep the good employees, but if the employees aren't doing a great job, then that's something that can be changed. We are paying top dollar here, I know that.
Well, we got this packet, where everybody showed their job functions, their accomplishments, their goals. What was stagnant, that was each employee gave this. Is this what you're talking about that we wanted, needed? Because I thought this is what we agreed on.
No,
that
there was supposed to be detailed job descriptions, because like when Lynn says these folks are doing other things, and I think they are, I know there's cross, so I'm just going to use city clerk for an example. Everybody I know does something extra, but city clerk, now she's working on the website, she was doing rentals. That's not maybe the typical function of a city clerk. If you go to Clearwater, they may not, their city clerk may do just city clerk stuff and not branch out to these other things. So I think it's important to know what we're doing on those other things, and then what's the return on those other things. Because, I think the example of the check valves is a great example. When you say, hey, this guy saved you $10,000 per valve, I'm with Glenn, I'll write you the check tomorrow, because that's tangible evidence of a great job and deserves a bonus, deserves a good raise, maybe both. But if somebody just kind of shows up and puts out what they're supposed to be doing, that's, what we kind of expect, and that's what we're paying a good salary for.
Well, I think it's also up to Lynn too. If Lynn sees an employee that's just doing the bare minimum, then maybe there's a better person we could hire. And I think a lot of that, and Lynn, you got Kyle to do those check valves, and he did because you asked him to, and I think that shows leadership. And so, I think it's a lot of, not that you need to make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do and maybe push them to do a little extra in order to earn, and I think they are, from what I've seen. I don't know every detail of everything, but from what I've seen, I think they are. So I'm with Rita on this, I think they deserve.
How do we handle overtime as well? Because like Patty puts in a lot of hours at these
She's
meetings and
an
stuff.
exempt.
She's our salary person. What about our maintenance crews and stuff?
If they work over, they get paid. Kyle is salaried and Laura is salaried. Well, there's 3 hourly employees in the city.
So, I'm just going to make the comment, as a former salary employee, by the time you divide how many hours you work, what you actually make, and just keep that in mind when people are making decisions.
If the salaries are optimized based on job description, then I think bonuses come right along in there. If you're to the maximum salary for, say the unions, I'm familiar with that. You've got a 4% or 10% raise over 4 years, you got 2% 1 year and 1% when the final was 2. And you worked over your job description, it would be up to Lynn, he's the boss. And then, again, Kyle saved $10,000, you would get a percentage of that. Or the team that did that would get a percentage. Not necessarily the whole 10,000, but something that, but we don't know where the baseline is for the wages. We don't know if we're low, high, in between, wherever.
It really
And I still
depends.
would always believe in bonuses after that, once you achieved your baseline.
Yeah, it depends. And I'm going to use me, and I'm not advocating anything, but if I gave you a list of the city managers in this county, I'm the lowest paid city manager in the county. That's just an example. And I'm not advocating any more money. I'm happy where I'm at, okay? But, a good example, Indian Rocks Beach, yeah, it's a little bigger city. They just gave him a $15,000 raise, making $140,000. The new guy at Treasure Island's gonna make, I think, like 150, 160. So, I don't think our employees, when I look at the employees we have here, you gotta realize, we got 8 people, okay? That's all we got. We don't have the luxury of 25 people or 35 people. So, yes, they're tasked to do more things than, the city clerk in most cities What do they do, Patty? City clerk business.
That's their deputy and their assistant.
And they probably have a deputy or an assistant or whatever. I mean, I don't know, if it's just to somebody close. No, there's probably only one city clerk in Bel-Air Bluffs. But that's pretty much probably the majority of her job. She doesn't do,
Well, once again, I mean, we need to normalize the data. We're talking about a community of 1,500
Right,
residents.
understand.
There are condo associations bigger than this, and with budgets bigger than this, and we're managing it with 8 people,
that's right.
right?
Well, and I think that if you looked at the baseline, you'll probably find out that our people do more and get paid less.
But what I'm saying is the crux of this thing is descriptions and measuring what's getting done.
No, I
And that's what we're falling
But I'm
down.
saying you're
I
gonna fall
really
into the
don't,
trap.
I'm just gonna.
If you can support it with the data,
Well, I understand it, but then you're gonna, then if you get all the data and you look and you're like, oh, wow. And then now all of a sudden the employees are like, wait a minute, I expect a 6% raise because that would make me even compared to them. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I think.
So I
you're
think
asking
overdoing is
for-
okay.
it is a double-edged sword.
Right,
And
so
I
I'm
think
just
you're
saying I don't wanna
asking
get
for
stacked.
data that, number one, it's not going to be apples for apples.
No.
You're never going to find that, and you can analyze it all day long, but at the end of the day, is this council, or is it our responsibility to micromanage every employee's pay, or is it our responsibility to establish a budget that we would like to award to the city manager to distribute as he wishes?
Based on merit,
Based
his
upon
opinion.
his own decisions, because we don't manage the city.
I agree.
I agree too.
I agree with that.
And that's already established, right? Because the only ones we really manage are the charter employees, and you manage the bonuses for all the people working for you. So how many people are the council really talking about? We're talking about the city manager, the city clerk, and the finance director. He does directly manage the bonuses for everybody else.
Yeah, but what I was telling you is the concept of the bonus kind of backfired in essence.
We need to do something better, so.
And all I'm saying is, some employees got like 1% or 0.9%, which I think is pretty sad from,
Yep.
I'm just gonna be honest with you, I'm a resident here too, and I'm paying the taxes too. And I think that's pretty sad that the value that has been portrayed was pretty poor.
But in all honesty here, I mean, we, including you, discovered this
Right.
travesty late, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it could have been brought back up to the council and said, whoop, we messed up. You know, we have an unintended consequence here. Should we fix it? But we didn't.
Well,
We
so
managed it in a different direction.
that's part of my reason for saying, okay, the index from the HR consultant recommended 3.2%. And I'm kind of in the middle with that because I can look at some other indexes and it says 2.8 or 2.9. I can look at the military index, which Glenn and I are both familiar with, and that's even different. So they had unintended consequences last budget year. I think a 3% raise potential, not saying that they'll all get 3%, but I'm saying the 3% potential is reasonable, a reasonable request.
So
So
you're
that's
saying
what I'm asking the council.
budget for the 3%,
Right,
and if they have a slacking year, they only get 1%. If That's
right.
what they vary.
Because
Okay.
what we're doing, we're converting the personnel manual, we're taking, everyone has a current job description right now. And my recollection is, I think I gave that to everyone, but if I didn't, I think I did.
Yeah, I just pulled it up.
I gave you all the current job descriptions. We're going to revise them and come up with an evaluation form that is more of a point-based as opposed to, I think what it says going across, what does it say? Clearly outstanding, meets goals or whatever it does. So we're going to convert that to something that is more directed to the job they do. You cannot make an evaluation form for every specific job. You have a salary job description, or salaried evaluation form, and you have a hourly evaluation form. About the only jobs that you could do otherwise, maybe you have a different one for the city manager. But realistically, the supervisory one, you don't, nobody makes one for this person, one for that person, nowhere that I know of. And I've asked that consultant, we've retained her to do that, to update the personnel manual, which she should have a proposal, because she even said to me, our personnel manual is ridiculous for 8 employees. She kind of said, what are you trying to operate for 100? She said, I've seen personnel manuals that are much smaller for 50 employees and you have 8. So she's going to come back with some suggestions and then we'll go from there. So what I'm recommending is we budget for 3% and it'll be given out based on their evaluation on their anniversary day.
We have audience question. I know June has to leave, so, and I think Pam Gunn had one also, so I'm not sure. You're good? Okay. June?
I just have a question. Does the employees get to do a separate evaluation of themselves and submit it at the same time the county does it?
Yeah, some cities do that. We haven't established that at this point. Basically, what that form does is and it's an optional form in most places. You don't have to fill it out or not. I don't know if the county makes them fill it out, but where I worked before, we had the option, we could fill it out, count ourselves, and say, and sometimes it helped because maybe you as a supervisor forgot about something they did during the year. And I can discuss that if you want me to look into that, but it's just a generic form that's filled out and they have an opportunity to add to their evaluation. And realistically, in most cases, my experience with them is you don't gain a lot of information out of that, other than maybe you missed something like, oh, he put in a check valve on 12th Street or something like that I forgot about. But, I'll talk to the HR consultant, maybe we can add that form. And if they want to submit it, that's fine. I don't really have an issue with it one way or the other.
Lynn, at the end of this year, it would be a good idea, I'll stick my neck out here to even up for the mistake that was made last year. As far as the people money to the employees, if we can in some way.
Well, I've done something personally to try to even it up, but that's not from the city, it's from me personally, with some of the employees. So
The other thing is, okay, they get their raise, but if there is something exceptional being done.
And I can bring that to
And I think we need to show the appreciation, either with a dinner card or something. I mean, it just makes sense. This is done in industry, it's done in business.
It's already in the personnel manual. We can do a merit bonus at any time. And I mean, it doesn't have to be, based on evaluations or anything. It can just be, hey, this guy did this job. Look at the value it added to the city. You saved us X number of dollars. We're going to give you a percentage of that, and we can authorize that. I mean, it's already there.
Well, let's not be bashful about it.
Well, it's not in, let's put it this way, the money that was put in the budget was for that small pot of money. That's all that was put there. So it's going to have to be found somewhere else, which I'm sure I can find it.
And that was a computation based on the anniversary dates of all the employees, and that's why the number is smaller, because it's not 3% over the entire year of salary.
That's right.
It's just based on the anniversary dates, correct?
Right.
So that's why that pot of money was smaller, you know. Again, you know, I think that the general thinking had been, yeah, let's put aside 3% of all the salaries and wages and dole it out if we think the,
Yeah, like I said, Vice Mayor and I've had a conversation about it, but it was unintended consequences of that
it's going
situation.
late.
Yeah.
Did you have another question, Jim?
Well, a couple comments. The county, I actually was a supervisor with the county, and it gave the employees a chance to basically vet on paperwork. And there was a couple times that I got some great suggestions of things that I overlooked, or things today, on that form, it even says suggestions to make your job better. What can we do to make your job better? Make you like it better, make you like your job more, enjoy working for us. So the employee got some input into their evaluation. And it usually was submitted, we had a deadline, I had to get it 30 days before I did their actual evaluation. They had to fill it out and turn it in. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, yes, we are on a tight budget, but there was ways that the county did for rewarding their employees. So say if they saved, if we don't have money, if they saved the city some money, a great deal of money, and we went to this one period of time when there was a hiring freeze on, and the county couldn't pay overtime. We gave them comp time to be used at a future date. So they could use it for sick or vacation. It wouldn't count against them on their evaluations. And I think we could even try to do that kind of reward system for when they do cost savings for the city, or they get more revenue in for the city. I mean, it's just something to look at, so we'll give them some flex time without it going against them. So there's some other ideas I just wanted to toss out there that we did with the county.
I think you have to keep in mind when you have an hourly versus salary employee. When you have an hourly employee, you better be paying overtime, and courts if they are, you're going to get yourself in big trouble.
Time and a half, as long as you give a comp and a half.
No, I think you have to pay them time and a half, and when you have a salaried employee, that is an option, and Lynn and I have also privately discussed that one where, you know, if an employee needs to go to the doctor or something, there's no reason to take a sick day. If that's an employee that's giving you extra hours, that there's no reason to do that. You give that person, I've done that in business many, many times, and you give that employee that afternoon off, and that's free of charge because they've given you many days free of charge, many nights. You know, it's not an even thing. When you're a salaried employee, the balance is always going to be in favor of the employer. You're going to be, if you're doing your job as a salaried employee, you're putting in a lot more time than you're getting free time. But, you know, I got to tell you, it was a nice, sweet day when my boss would look at me and say, you're going golfing on Friday, and all of a sudden that was a free day off because he recognized that I probably put in 70 hours the week before. So, you know, Lynn, I think I know I've told you that I had no problem with it. I don't know if we can formalize that, but I think.
Well, I
it's a way of
don't, you
rewarding
know, if
people.
an employee's got to go take care of someone, you know, I will tell you that before, and I think Patty and Melanie can attest to that, before if they left for an hour, they either had to take vacation or sick leave or whatever it was. That was the policy. I've not had that policy since I've been here. So, you know, if they need to go, because I know they're putting in more hours. You know, I at least give Patty an extra half hour because she puts in, what, an hour extra a month or so? No.
Like, let's see, you're on
And,
3 right
you
now.
know, Same with Melanie, you know, if Melanie needed to go somewhere, you know, she had an appointment that she had to take care of something. Hey, you know, we all have issues, and, you know, I think for the most part, the salaried people, actually, for the full part, they're putting in more hours than they're afforded.
And that's an important distinction in our personnel manual. You can comp certain employees, but others you have to flex time, right? I mean, you can slide their
Yeah.
time, but you can't comp.
No. Yeah, years ago, they used to, gosh, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? No.
It was before Reed.
Yeah, they used to let people build up comp time and they'd pay them, right?
You could cash it out or take
You could
it.
cash it out or take it, and that, you know, that was done away with before Reed, I think.
No,
So,
because,
huh? Yeah,
no,
well,
he He did it.
Oh, he did it. Okay, well, I guess I kind of would probably have done away with it too, but I have the other philosophy that, hey, if Melanie or Patty need to go do something, you know, paint your kitchen or something, yeah, go for it. So, you know, I'm still standing by my recommendation that we maintain the 3% in there for the budget, and that it'll be given based on anniversary date, and it will be given based on their evaluation. So what's the consensus?
I agree.
I agree.
Good with that?
I just think you have to have some analytics in here. I mean, again, we're not trying to.
Well, you are having analytics because you're gonna have that with the evaluation. Yeah, that's why we've asked, you know, the council asked me to do something with the personnel manuals. Councilmember Shirley brought up that, you know, we need to get an outside person to update it and do some things, and that's what we're doing. And I've told her the concerns that people have based on, okay, did you do this, what did you do extra? So this is your point total. So I think it is analytic. It's just, we're not at that point to have those. We'll have them by, you know, my goal is to have that done by September. And then that will start the evaluation process in the new year. And, you know, if something changes, the money's set aside, and, you know, if they do an outstanding job, I think they should be rewarded. And, you know, I don't believe that we've shown that. You know, and I'm talking with this as a resident. We've got employees that you go give them 0.9%, that's pretty sad. You know, if I ask them to, you know, work a hurricane, you know, and drag tree limbs down the street or, you know, whatever, I think we have to reward those employees or put in a check valve. Or right now they're trimming all the palm trees in the city. You know what? That saved the city, previously it was $26,000 a year to have our trees trimmed. Our budget this year is 15, and we're probably not going to use all that. So they are saving us money, and they're doing things over and above. You know, because all of that was contracted out before. So that's my point. But I think the consensus is, am I right, Mayor?
I don't know if your questions are all answered.
I guess my only point is I have concerns about compounding 3%.
And I understand
ad
that.
infinitum with a merit pay increase. I understand this bonus, and if somebody wants, give them a bonus. But I think we're putting the cart before the horse. Before we straighten out this personnel manual, job description, evaluation thing, we're jumping right into another 3% pay increase ad infinitum.
When was the last 3%?
It'll be 2 years.
2 years
Because
ago.
the last council said, no, we're going to put the brakes on this thing until we
That
sort out the
equates
person.
to 1.5%, right?
Right. That's what it will equate to
Right.
when the index says
If
6.
If another 3 is given.
Yeah.
That's where whatever the consensus is here, I've said my piece.
I think right now we're saying put it in the budget, not necessarily
Not spending.
give it.
Well, you'll see the evaluation process, you know, you'll see the form and all of that, but, you know, I'm sorry, but as a resident, I'm a little embarrassed about it. I'm gonna be honest with you, about what, and I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about the employees. So,
But you know what, Lynn, I mean, I made a big issue during the campaign, and I'm gonna keep hammering it home, because I know there's residents that are gonna hold my feet to the fire, and I'm gonna hold my own feet to the fire. We have had, for the last 10 years, nonstop increase in spending in this building. It has went up every year. We don't increase the millage, we increase the value of the property. One year, we increased the millage and the value of the property, and we keep spending more every single year. And I said, no more. This year, I want it to be level, I want it to be flat. Because I think we have to, at some point in time, say, we're gonna stop the increase in spending. Run this thing as tight as we possibly can. And if that means cutting stuff, then we have to cut some stuff. And I think that goes to what Glenn is saying, that you either make it up on additional revenue, but if you keep increasing salaries 3% every year, you're compounding that, so 3 is 3.3 the next year, it's gonna kill you, because the only way to do that is to keep increasing taxes, and that's exactly what we have done. If I pull out my chart, I think it goes back 10 years. I know I called around 5 years worth, and I think it went back 9 years, I just didn't show it, because there was a double
well,
increase.
and I understand what you're saying. And we can look at other things in the budget, and I'm going to be explaining some things.
I think you might have this, yeah.
I've got this covered.
I think
already.
you do.
But-
The way the consensus thing works is I have to propose an alternative. And I would propose that we keep the 3% in there, as you propose it. We sort it out with the evaluations at the end, but what I would say is, we're not going directly to the 3% merit pay increase. We will sort it out like we did with the last one, between the base and the merit pay increase.
I think that's fair.
Is that fair?
Yeah, just have it in the budget and we can go either way.
The money's there like it was the last time, but we sorted it out.
Well, but here's what you're doing. You're doing the same thing you did last time.
So let's recognize that, and how do we fix that?
You're saying, okay, we're going to put 3% in there. 3% of what? Okay, 3% of June or June to September is 0.9% for that employee. Okay, because they don't get it. You know, as a bonus, they don't get that. And that's what you did this year.
So the fix is, you take all the pay and salaries, you take 3% of that, and that's what you set aside.
That's what I was thinking.
And then at the end, if you go with a merit pay increase, you base it on anniversary dates. If you decide to go with
Then
the
you
bonus
save some
system,
money in the end.
then you can, right? Well, you say that for that 1 year, but in the out years, that's where you pay it back, right? And that's where nobody's looking down the road with this thing in the out years. Well, we're just throwing in 3% this year. Well, 10 years from now, what's that 3% going to be?
Well, 10 years from now, that 3%'s, you're going to have to pay it anyway because.
Compounded over 10 years, 3% over 10
If
years.
you want employees, you're going to have to pay it anyway.
I
That's
don't
just the
think
fact of
we're
it.
asking to commit to 3% every year.
You absolutely are.
No, you're
We didn't
not.
last year.
That's because we laid it out on the table and we said no.
That's what I'm saying. We
would
said no
decide-
last year.
We said we would
How
decide-
many years in a row would you like to say no?
Until we figure out the personnel manual, the job
Okay.
descriptions and the evaluations.
And I say until then, put it in the budget, so if we decide to say yes, based on all that data, then we're covered.
I personally don't want to see his employees' data. All I care about is the top 3. That's all I care about. Are you doing a good job? Fine. Here's the money, and you do what you feel you need to with it. I don't
And that's the
care
way it's set
about
up
what
now.
your employees are doing as far as their merit goes and how you.
Yeah.
This
up
is
to you.
this is why we have a city manager running the city.
Manage.
That's the existing system.
Right.
That's already there, so
And
we're not changing anything.
I feel like we're dipping into it is what we're doing, is that we're trying to remove control from him.
That's
And
not
I
true.
just don't.
You need to read the personnel manual and understand how that works.
Again, I think that if you read the personnel manual compared to other cities, you're gonna realize that we are grossly underpaying, and then the double-edged sword's gonna come back and hit you in the.
That's what
And if that's what comes back, then we fix it.
But then the argument is, where do you get that money? You say revenues are down, so now you're in a bigger pickle. I say, let's just appreciate the employees we have, reward them based on their current salaries, and reward them, and then we'll figure out the next year's budget. But for this budget, put it in there. Like I said, if an employee is totally doing awful this year, they don't get the 3%. They get it based on the 1%, or whatever Manager Lynn decides.
Does anybody here run a business? You run one right now?
No, but I've been an
My own
underpaid
business I
employee.
run.
I mean, do you have,
Exactly. Surgery resident.
We have evaluated up to
Slave.
350 people.
we have
It's like
100
less than
employees and we cannot keep,
As a
we can't keep staffed because everyone is paying more, no matter what. Everyone's paying more. And I think that if an employee is happy where they're at, they're going to stick around until they feel like they're getting kicked. And I just don't want that to happen to our employees because I think that they're doing a great job and I really have no complaints.
I agree with you, and I understand your point, the spiraling out of control, but that's if there's a guaranteed 3% every year. We're not saying anything about guarantee, it's gonna be
This
based
is
on
this
merit.
year's budget.
Right, well, no, that's what I'm saying, this year's budget only, next year we can see, and it, like I said, if they have a bad employee and they're not doing very well this year, they don't get 3%, so, and we can save money elsewhere. If we get rid of the video, that's
Well,
$8,000
I'm
we saved.
looking, there's
Yeah.
negative, negative all through
Take
this
it all. I
budget.
don't-
There's all sorts of savings all through this
Oh, I
budget.
know, like, I didn't order any shirts, take my $50 and
Me
put it
neither.
towards
I
them.
didn't either, so
I got
go
one,
ahead and
I
take it.
got one, so, yeah.
The thing I think we're losing focus on is the city was in such bad shape 10 years ago, wherever the money went, it went. But now we're finally getting traction to put some beauty into the city and optimize what we have. We haven't touched the trails. We haven't really upgraded the parks. There's more things to be done. These employees are doing that with the guidance of Lynn.
Because they care.
Yeah, because they care. And yes, we've got some time frame in here to see just how much they're paid and whether we feel comfortable with that level. And I don't think we should really play around too much waiting to give these people what they deserve.
Yeah.
They-
Because, you know, honestly, it could come to a point where Lynn's like, hey, this isn't in your personnel job that we, data are collected, analytically collected. But hey, you can go do this. They're like, no, it's not my job.
Absolutely.
I'm not shoveling that shell. Go pay somebody else to do it. And now our budget is way out of whack because now we have to pay a company to go put a check valve in instead of Kyle, because Kyle's like, that's not my job. I didn't get paid any extra for it. No one said thank you. No one appreciated me. So why should I go do it, bust my back and potentially get hurt doing a job that's not in my profile? Just saying, you have to appreciate people. I mean, even something, I mean, simple, thank you. Wow, Kyle, you're awesome. You know, you helped us save money, you know. Here's a gift card, you know, let's dinner on us, whatever, something.
Well, and it's like when Councilmember Bean said, as far as unions, you did nothing more than what your job description was, because otherwise you got into big trouble. I mean, I have many family members that are in the unions right now. And Lynn, you mentioned the sheets that you were looking at, the spreadsheets. You mentioned the military. The military has bukus of benefits out there that the employees benefit from later. Our people don't. I mean, we got to appreciate what we have and pay them. And I vote we just give them, put the 3% in the budget, and then Lynn gives it to them based on what
Agreed.
they're doing.
And let's move on to another page, see where we can save the money and balance the budget that way.
Well, if you do away with the video, you've already taken care of part of it.
We're ahead of the game.
That's right.
And the dinner. What's that?
And the dinner, you've taken a little
You
bit.
can have that.
So you might be almost there.
Well, you're gonna get there in the next one. I already know how the story plays out.
Okay. Do you have any more questions for Patty? You gotta finish yours, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead and finish.
So the next page is contractual services. That's Municode. Both of those are Municode. Then my travel, I'm not going to have any travel until 2020. Let's see. And printing and binding, once again, that's mostly Municode. You know, various other little print jobs, but that's all.
Patty, can I ask you a question on this meeting code? 'Cause I'm very familiar with what it is. My question is we don't change it that much. You know, we did last year when we had the big code review, but we don't have that every year, that's not normal. We just change ordinances here and there, there's not that many, you already do all the work on them anyway. Why can't we just maintain this ourselves on our website, and then just, if somebody wants to see our code of ordinances, they're out there? because we're paying the service, and, you know, to that point, there was a citizen who came by and he kept saying, is it up to date, is it up to date, is it, and it finally went up to date like the other week, just like a week or so ago, and it finally went up to date, but it was showing last year's. So it's not even really all that timely, and it's not because of us, it's because of them. I think it takes them however long to do it, but, you know, if somebody wants to see our code of ordinances, come into the Bel Air Beach website, and there they are. Go sort them, search them, do whatever you want to do with them, print them out, it could be a PDF file, assuming that it's, you know, compliant, of course. But why do we have to use this service?
First, I just want to explain that it is up to date because even though it's not incorporated into the body of the code, they're always listed at the front of the code, all the changes. So they are up to date. I don't want you to think that they're not. And then as far as the other, I'm not sure what the legalities of that
Yeah,
are.
that-
I don't know the answer to that.
And as long as we have it where someone can find it, because that's the key, you know, if you're, first thing I did when I was building my house was I actually read that code cover to cover to say, I gotta know what I'm doing over here. I would think anybody who comes to the town, it's probably great reading because at least you'll know what we're all about as a city. It's not that difficult though for us to maintain that. I mean, part of it is our charter and the rest of it is, and I'm just wondering, I'm sitting here, you know, again, it's small, like Dave just said, there's money all over the place over here, you know, and maybe I am more inclined to give our hardworking employees a raise with no problem, but I'm saying, hey, you know, $900 is $900. We don't have to necessarily spend that.
Well, I'll give you an example. The ordinance that we passed, was it last month? With the 3 words.
Yeah.
Patty came to me the other day, and what'd they tell us? How much?
700.
And I said, look, that, to incorporate 3 words in there, they wanted us to pay $700. And I said, no, we'll wait till we have some other ordinances. So if we consolidate them, and as she said, every change is already out there in the front, because those ordinances are there. So we don't necessarily have to update them every time. Last year I felt it was very important to update them because we went through, I don't know, half a dozen chapters and changed many things. So that was important. And what they do is they take that, what we send them, the ordinance, and they rewrite it or recompile it so it fits into the code book. I think we can be careful and not submit changes on, like we had last year, which was large. We just submit them as there's multiple of them to save us money. So, you know, I think leaving it where it's at is probably a good thing because it's very accessible. Any person can look at it anywhere they're at.
It's very searchable too.
Yes, very searchable.
That's the beauty of that.
I think you would have trouble trying to operate that book out of the city hall.
Anybody who's dealt with configuration management would understand the impact of this. We can't even keep up with the minutes, and now we're talking about throwing this over the transom into it.
Yeah,
I recommend just leaving it.
but we're not, as an example, we're not going to update it as often until we've got multiples because it's going to cost you the same amount of money.
Now, what I would recommend is, since we do have a website, whenever we have changes that we're caching
Yeah,
until we're ready to hand them off all at once, we should possibly have a link to municipal code and then have our list of changes above that. It just shows.
we could put the
Before you
ordinances
go in
there.
there, here's what we're.
Here's the latest ordinances.
This is what we're adding.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, we can do that. Just, it'll be the latest ordinance.
And that way
Didn't
you
you
can.
send out, oh, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
Didn't you send out a brochure though, when you did that anyway, to all the residents? in the
When we
mail?
did the code, we did that.
Yeah.
And, but that, when it
That's
was,
all changed now.
we,
Okay.
no, we didn't do
I
that.
did
'cause
that,
it's-
but I just was wondering when,
It's 3 words. that
Yeah.
It was a, you know, an error that we found, so. And we're gonna look at changing a couple other codes with, we're looking at for the seawalls and the docks, so we're gonna have to probably put some meat in that this fall, because we're looking at some options, so we can have a better situation on inspection of those, because some people take care of them, and And some people don't take their own.
But you have some other changes coming too.
Yeah.
We have signs, parking, we have
Yeah.
other stuff that.
Yeah, so-
There's some changes coming, but you can do it all at once too. I like the idea of just having, I mean, they do that with law all the time, where you have a printed book, you go to the front of the book first and say, these are the changes that didn't make the new printed book yet, and you have to look at that first, so it's, you go
Yeah,
there
we can
first.
do that, we can put that on.
That'll save you.
Okay.
I notice here it has $150 for repair of recording equipment. I had a little car ride with Lynn today, and I know that you could probably add another 0 or 2 to that, so, it's pretty expensive.
Well, here, since we're talking about recording equipment, the monitors that are at the desk are, and I could be saying that, I think they're VGA, which is old school today. And Dave might be able to, because he's a little more into that than I am. The board that went out in our system is a board that isn't made anymore, or the box. It's not made anymore. I had Victor do some research on it, I even looked. So all you can buy is a used one, and that'll cost us $2,000 or $3,000. So I question if we converted it to what I've given you a copy of, says at the top, BBBS, to kind of, you know, I know the council's interested in the public seeing stuff and things of that nature, but if we want to keep the monitors and all of that stuff, it's gonna cost us 20 grand. Because our whole system, if we changed it to HDMI, then the TVs probably wouldn't work, because they're from,
Whenever I was touring the county, the courthouse, and their council chambers,
yeah.
I don't think that they had, I could be wrong, but I don't think that they all had individual monitors. I think that they had a large one further back in the room that all the council members could see. And then in the front of the room, they had a couple of monitors for the audience to see. And
I think they do have.
they have individual ones?
Yeah, I think so.
I remember one was in the back, but I couldn't remember.
When you walk up to do a presentation at the county, there's this box here.
Okay,
the
that's
middle.
what that's for, all right.
And I'm blanking the word, what it's called, but it's like overhead projector. They call it something. You push the documents down, and then they could read them at the dais.
I see.
And then they go up on the screens that are on both sides. So, I'm trying to remember what the name of that thing is, but.
So the bulk of cost here is for monitors.
Yeah, the monitors, and then you'd have to change out these TVs. And realistically, I guess what I'm suggesting to you, how often, you know, you've got the paper version. How often do we even use the monitors at the dais?
I could live without the monitors. I have to pay. I always use the paper ones when you send them to me.
Yeah, and usually the presenter is not following along.
No.
They never do.
I
And
don't
so,
put the time on.
okay, what if,
I know, I keep
whenever
doing
the
this.
monitors were out that day, I was completely lost.
It's out of order.
And the same goes up here. These are really too small, and you can't see out there what's on them. She stepped out. I love her presentations and graphics and everything, but they're not practical on a monitor. You have to see them on paper.
The residents can't see anything.
Right. Honestly, I would be happy that with, again, just a couple of large monitors, one maybe up there and one up there, so that we can see in both directions and
Well, I
if there's
can
something to
look into
present.
that further, but, you know, my recommendation is not to go buy a $2,500 used box that could be broken 6 months,
Right.
and not replace those monitors. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
replace anything we have right now. I think we need to rethink this whole thing because, just as Dave's saying, I mean, these
That's-
small monitors and
And that's kind of my point. Maybe we'll
go to something
do some
big.
further research and There's nothing in the budget for it now or next year, but if I have to, I'll come back to the council and ask for a budget amendment.
I mean, we only really use it for the budget.
Yeah, and I guess you could make a lot of copies for the audience.
Yeah.
Because
That'd
I'll
be
tell
way
you,
cheaper.
having sat in the audience, you couldn't really see it too well on the screens anyway. So a handout would have been probably more beneficial, and it's something to take away then.
Way
So
cheaper.
you could
So,
do that.
At
Rather
this
than spend
point,
20,000.
you know, I'm just gonna, I'll do some more research on, you know, I know like, I think it's Vice Mayor, wasn't it Indian Rocks has the screen in the back of them though?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I mean, a lot of them are like that. You go to
Right.
Dunedin, you go to like Reddington, and they have.
Well, the console's to the back, they don't see it because it's behind them. I guess they spin around, I'm presuming, if they do, I don't know.
We definitely need something to put digital content on a wall so everybody can see it, especially whenever we have guests, because they're always bringing in PowerPoints. And
Yeah, so we'll do some research on what we might change to, but I want to tell you that I'm not planning to spend any money to
I mean,
fix that.
I don't know, you're the tech guy, but would a projector be
well, that's what I
cheaper?
was.
Instead of a huge, big screen?
That's what I was going to suggest was just a nice, white screen.
Okay,
That goes up and down or something.
That would make sense.
The only thing with a projector, I mean, working Sony, you have a problem here because you have too much ambient light. Yeah, that's going to kill you.
Check in how much
You
shades
need
are.
dark.
Check to see how much shades
20
cost.
We know.
Blackout curtains.
You need really, for those projectors to work real well, it needs to be black dark, real dark.
They've gotten better.
Yeah, they've got, they're much.
Yeah, they have gotten better, but they're not.
Smaller, a lot better.
So at this point, what I'm suggesting is, I wanted to tell you what the problem was, but, and realistically, that whole system in there is 10 plus years old, and
Just use it till it dies and.
it's, we can still show on these with the overhead. The only problem is, you won't see it.
Is it just a matter of getting that board?
Well,
That would
But-
at least get you temporarily going.
but that could,
Yeah, it's,
A break in a week, I
did
got
you
it.
say it was caps? The caps went out on it?
yeah,
The
something,
capacitors went out?
yeah, something.
That time frame, they literally wear out. They bulge and quit working.
Yeah, what was happening, what happened, we even switched the cords on it thinking, okay, we'll see if it's the cord problem in the little box that attaches to the board. It wasn't. It'd come on for like 30 seconds and then go away again. And the light would go out, and it's definitely the box. So at this point in time, we'll still use these,
That's fine.
but we're gonna do away with the monitor.
I'm good
That's
with
fine
that.
with me. They're things away anyway.
And then we'll explore something in the future that's a little more cost effective.
And just let anyone know that if they're making a presentation, that the council is going to need a paper handout of it. They have to produce that if they want us to see it. If not,
Yeah,
we're not going to see it.
well, no, they should give it to us.
Right.
It's kind of like that lady come last month asking me like, wait a minute, it's your presentation, it's not my presentation. And you didn't give it to me electronically. You emailed us a paper copy.
Right, which was out of order from the presentation.
And then she went off 6 different pages, so, okay, so that's where we'll go with that. Okay, Patty.
The flowers and the other miscellaneous, those aren't big items. The advertising, our ordinances, depending on how large they are, that can run into some dollars, so that's what that money is. My memberships and my registrations, no classes this year, so that's a page. That's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Patty. Are there any changes to Patty? Okay, the next one is the city manager's budget. It's basically salary, benefits, and some memberships. There are a couple things that I go to keep our community rating system, which is for floodplain management, that are in the budget, but other than that, it's pretty lean to me. So unless there's any questions about that, I don't really have any other comments.
And there was a membership, I remember discussing
Yeah.
it with you. You were iffy on it when I discussed it with you. Do you still want to do that, or is it even?
Well, that's really up to the council. The council's the one that wanted the ICMA membership, wanted me to be an ICMA member. You know, it's the International City Managers Association. And actually, that's how they advertise the position. So, you know, I get a magazine once a month. I get, you know, they do send out information and stuff like that. Is it really valuable? In my mind, I don't think it's as valuable as the money that's there, but that's up to the council as a whole. If you want an ICMA member manager, and that's
Well,
what you
if it's
want.
no value to you or the city, then $800, $800.
You don't feel there, I mean, when you and I had the discussion, you didn't really feel that there was any, you know, like you said, you get a magazine, I mean, you get Sports Illustrated if you want for $30 a year.
So are you gonna let me buy Sports Illustrated?
You bet Sports
For
Illustrated.
$30 a year, that's $800, sure.
But, you know, there are some things that it does provide, you know, it's access to some data and information and things like that. But I'm saying, do I go participate in any of it? No, I don't. There's a Florida Association, and I don't know if you, do you know, Melanie, do you have a law vote?
No, you didn't.
Okay. Florida City Managers Association. They have events pretty regularly, and I think I've been to one. And it was a good educational opportunity.
So the other one's more of a national one, and this
Yeah,
is more of a Florida one?
Yeah, unless you want to send me, I think their conference is coming up in, well, I could do that. Their conference is coming up in September in Nashville, and they got,
Good golf courses?
no, I'm just
Denied.
denied.
It's also kind of a resource we've never tapped into. I mean, they can provide resources and information and background and experience when it comes to
This is true.
hiring positions, helping you sort through resumes and start compiling data. They'll help you. I mean, they have a bunch of retired people with a lot of city management experience and
Well, that's the Florida City Managers Association.
this is the ICMA.
Well, they're ICMA members, but those guys do it through FCCMA,
Right, which is
a sub-organization.
Oregon compared to the
The
national.
Florida one seems more valid because it's Florida, it's local, so.
Yeah, you may not have access. I mean, realistically, we just paid the membership in this budget year, and I think it's good to.
We just paid, yeah. I mean,
Next.
Lynn, my point would be, if you don't want it, I'm not gonna tell you, okay, this is me talking just now, okay? I'm not gonna say no, but if you don't think it's worthwhile, it's $800, I'd rather use it someplace else, use it on the employees, use it on something else, if you don't use it. If you think you're gonna use it, then you do it, but I'm not gonna make the call, because I don't know what it has to
Well,
offer, you know, other than what
we'll
you just mentioned.
I'll leave it there, and we'll just see. I'm gonna dwell on that a little more, because you and I talked about it, and I was kind of like, really, I'm not gonna go to Nashville, or wherever else they went. I'm not gonna go to any of those places, so. Or that's not my intent.
But you said it's already paid for this year, so
Yeah, sure.
now it's not.
Yeah, so it's paid through, I think June or July last year, or next year, so. No, it may be May, I think that's when we paid it.
Yeah, it was a couple months ago.
Yeah, okay. So, that's the city manager's budget. It's pretty much the same as last year. overall, I think the difference was $400, and that's probably part of the 3% that's put in there. Or what is it, 1.7. So that's probably really the only change. So the next one is the finance. And Melanie, I'm going to kind of let her talk about that. She's leaving us next Friday. And what you see here is the budget for, with hiring another finance officer. And I am proposing, I'm going to propose to you that we outsource it. I've got some questions that I've posed to the city attorney that I haven't got all the answers on, but because it is a charter position. But I'm proposing that we outsource it to more of a part-time situation. And Melanie has given me a proposal, and we'll just, once I get those answers from the city attorney, we'll go further with that. And on Tuesday's or Monday's meeting, there's an item on the agenda that's requesting authorization to negotiate an outsourced contract. Because I want to, if the city council doesn't have any problem with that, Melanie's current is, what do you say, Melanie? Current year budget is $123,000. I'm talking this year. Next year's budget, she had reduced it to $121,000 roughly. If we outsource it, Melanie's done some work on that for me, and that's what we've passed out. And if you want to talk a little bit about that, what we contract out, what we eliminate.
You want me to go straight to the contract?
Yeah.
Budget?
Unless the council wants to go the other route.
I'd like to hear it.
Okay.
Okay, well, what you originally received is for a salaried position, and it's basically personnel cost, and then the operating cost would stay the same, with the exception of the travel will all be deleted, and there will be no memberships or publications or professional development. So basically, if you look at the new package that you received, it's basically showing a contracted rate to do the financials and to help with the CAFR and the budget to ensure total compliance. The operating costs are going to stay the same, so basically you've eliminated the entire personnel services, which was $100,000. And then, so then you're just going to have professional services in its place, which for everything, and Lynn is looking to outsource payroll as well, not to me, to an outside firm. The total of all that would be $48,500. The audit is the same. We still have a contract with them. There's no travel per diem. The phone is the phone line that's in the finance office, so you're still going to have that. You're still going to have printing and binding because we have to have checks and we have to print the CAFR, and we have to advertise the millage rate. And that's it. So it's either $69,225 or $120,864.
Which saves you about $50,000 in cost. Outsourcing the payroll is going to cost us about $2,500. There's still going to have to be an employee input and stuff, but they will do the checks, they'll do the W-2s, they'll do the tax returns, they'll do all that for us. We won't be doing that anymore. We'll just get the reports back from them, and then however we outsource it, that information will be given to the person that does that contract. So, the cost savings is, if you look at this year's against next year's, it's $53,000 difference, which is a lot of money.
We're looking for the, keep things flat.
So that's a lot of money. So, and there's a couple other things, there's one other thing that I'll talk to you about at the next budget thing that I'm going to suggest, and we'll see how that goes too. So I am recommending that we outsource it. And however we end up doing that at this point in time, Melanie's give us a proposal to finish the calendar year.
Fiscal year.
Huh?
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year, calendar year, fiscal year. I just got to get a couple questions answered to clarify if it has to be an employee situation. Miller Bluffs, the person that does it up there, he's an employee of the city. And I'm just trying to clarify that in the charter because it talks about a treasurer. So Paul or Jackie actually is looking into that. So with that said, we'll just proceed on with the process, and if the council's fine with that, it's going to save us a little bit of money this year, maybe. I don't know. Probably not, because we have to pay Melanie or vacation and stuff, so it probably will save us much this year. But that's my suggestion at this point.
When you and I were speaking before, Melanie had announced that she was going to leave, about outsourcing the payroll, that's a no-brainer. Small companies do that, small 5-person firms do that, so it just doesn't make sense to do that inside. It's too much work, and it's so easily and inexpensively done on the outside, so that's easy. I know that Bel Air Bluffs does this and does it quite successfully, outsources, and so we have no issues with the charter. I've spoken about this, and I was totally for this. It's a significant savings. My biggest concern right now is that I know not every single item that Melanie was doing is being outsourced, and that you have coverage with your other employees, and I just want to make sure that you're comfortable that there'll be a good continuity. Melanie did an excellent job, and I just want to make sure that you're comfortable that whoever you're going to give this to in your team, that you're going to get that same type of result.
Well, the payroll portion, that the person that here is going to have to do that, Laura's already been doing that, so I'm just going to leave that with her. There'll be a little bit of training she's going to have online. So, yeah, she's the community improvement administrator, but she's doing other things other than that. And I've asked her and Kyle both, and Melanie spent some time with them a couple days this week to kind of
Spend time with them tomorrow morning too.
to go through, because there's some things that we're going to have to kind of help out with this process even in-house with what we have left. And it would be a good thing for my mentality of cross-training people and learning more about things like how do you pay a bill, write a check, things of that nature.
Nobody writes checks anymore.
Well, I do.
You pay it online.
We do.
You got to come in and sign them every week.
Hands get tired signing them.
Well, I still write checks, so I guess
You're old school.
Hey, I'm youngest here, I swear, but it's okay.
So there's things that, Melanie's been working with them this week, and they're going to actually do the check process tomorrow. And I think it's good to have that backup, but however we end up doing this, once I get a clarification on a couple things, I think this is an opportunity to save the city some money and bring that person, whoever it is, Melanie, for the short term, and whoever it is for the long term. They can come in and do their business, take care of those things, and they're not interfered with. They're not part of the daily staff operation. So that's important. The other thing that I'm going to suggest to you is we change the hours of City Hall from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock. We don't have hardly anybody that comes into the building, but what I'm suggesting there is that gives the other employees time to do things without interruption. I'm not suggesting reducing their hours.
You spoke, it was 8:30 to, right now it's 8:30 to 4, is it? Or
It's 8 to 4:30 right now. And
so you want to go 9 to?
9 to 4, and that'll give us that cushion to do some things that, you know,
We
like me, I
discussed-
come in every morning at 7, maybe a little before. And most mornings, that's my time to take care of stuff, because nobody's coming to the counter asking me anything. Usually there's nobody coming to the counter anyway until, what would you say, Patty? Melanie, 9:30. And a lot of times, after 3:30-ish, nobody even comes to the front, so. And, you know, the mayor and I talked about, you know, maybe later on doing something where we adjusted the hours a little bit on the Mondays that we have a council meeting, where a resident could come in and, you know, they want their beat sticker or something, so maybe
People who work and just can't make it until
Yeah.
4 o'clock. This
So,
gives them the one night
you know,
here anyway. So.
I don't think the customer service is gonna be hurt by doing this. I think it'll possibly doing the thing on council meeting night till 6 or 6:30, I think, might.
That's a big add if you do that, because that really gives the folks who are not able to get here.
Yeah,
regular
we
working
just
hours.
adjust the hours for that day on the first Monday. And, you know, it's not I think that can be worked out. So, but with that, if the council's fine with,
I would like to say, I was very sad to see your email. I only worked with you a short amount of time, but I've really enjoyed it, and I've learned so much about finance from you, more than I wanted to know, but thank you. And I will miss you, appreciate it.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
yeah, Melanie's, I have to say, Melanie's a very astute financial person. She is far and above, you know, from my standpoint. I ask her a lot of dumb questions. But she always seems to find me the answer. So, you know, she'll be missed, but, you know, I think it's an opportunity to do some adjustment.
Melanie, I'm going to also echo that. I've complimented you several times at council meetings, and I meant every word I said. You've given us some great insight, and I think you've helped this council, explain the statements, and your work has been exemplary in terms of its accuracy and its work and the quality of it. So it'd be hard to do this without you, but I wish you well in wherever you're going, whatever you're going to do. I know you're going to do great.
Okay, that being said, we'll go to IT, which basically is contractual services, computer repairs. What we've got in there is a desktop replacement. That's the only real big expense. Other than I've added a couple of iPads for the staff, and I think those are important to have. I mean, I use an iPad, but that's my personal one. I think they're much more beneficial than trying to carry what the city bought previously, which was Surfaces, which seemed to weigh 20 pounds. So this would be used for code enforcement and public works to be able to, keep our, when we have code violations, there's an opportunity to take an immediate picture, and then it can be transferred and put into a database, of course. So that's really the only really major changes in, and if you look at the budget from last year to this year, it's down about $700.
And I had a question for you, because it just stood out to me. I have about 4 or 5 domain names that I control. Domain name registration 800. How many names are we getting for 800?
It's a lot.
Oh,
We do.
That's what I was hoping to hear a lot, because it was one or two, it's like, this is.
No,
It's
sounding
the
like a-
.net, .org,
No,
.biz,
everything.
I
dot-
figured we did, okay.
yeah, we got,
Who is it that you, is it Network Solutions?
yeah,
Yeah, they're the highest. You should sell them to GoDaddy.
sell them to what?
GoDaddy, because you'll get them at a fraction of the cost.
$15 a year per, so.
And the first
So-
year is pretty much free.
Well, I'll do some exploration on that, because you're talking above my head.
GoDaddy, you've seen their commercials,
Yeah.
and I run online through them, and they're like, I think the first year was like $8 or $9.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was
like
Danica Patrick's sponsor.
Yes.
Yeah, $15.
Network Solutions, they basically, they are preying on people that never move, because they used to be the only game in town. And now there's
Well,
GoDaddy's.
Dave, can
GoDaddy's,
you,
yeah, I mean, that's.
maybe you and I have a
Help
chat.
you with that, sure.
Yeah, because like I said, the domain name registrations were
And I-
here when I came.
But I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I have mine with them, and they're fine, and I mean, I've had them there for years, and, I don't want to lose them, and then, they're great, and you just pay the bill in fact, it's an automatic, you give my credit card, and they'll take it out of your thing every year, so.
Well, I make them send me a bill.
Of course, because you like to cut checks.
No, I don't cut checks to them, I pay them with the city credit card, but I want to
That
see it
paper
first.
trail. Paper
If we
trail.
go back to the
I don't even know if they
iPad,
can send you.
are you filling out a form online with the iPad?
Emails.
Are you, what are you doing with it exactly?
Well, mostly I use it for email and when I'm doing the construction projects and stuff, I take a lot of pictures. So when you see the city news, those are pictures I've taken of that. And I keep that in my file because I'm concerned that, okay, I want to make sure the contractor is doing what he's supposed to be doing and, making sure, as an example, the seawall, I took a lot of pictures of the anchors and where they were along the street. That's what I use it for.
I'm just making sure you're not using it as just a camera.
No. I use it for my email. I can actually go on to the parking meter website through it, and I can, on the weekends, I'm the only one here, so sometimes I get notification that the parking meter's messed up in Morgan. Well, I have to go online to see what's wrong, and if I can fix it, I just put it on and fix it. It doesn't matter to me, unless I'm playing golf.
What is the difference between these IT numbers and the one that's on the budget summary?
On the what?
On the budget summary, because it shows a 12.9 for total budget, and on the budget summary under IT it shows 15.5.
That's what it is,
15.5 is
55.
the total. You gotta look, you gotta go to the next page to the
Oh, next
capital.
page.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, it's over, that's the total.
So we're having all these IT issues, and yet the budget for IT is dropping $4 million. So
Yeah, and it's not, we're not having a major IT issue, other than we're not, you're talking about an ADA.
yeah, I mean, we
Yeah,
chopped that at this meeting, and yet it wasn't showing up here.
yeah, most of this is for the guy that takes, our consultant that comes in and when we have problems, he fixes it. We have to pay licensing for Microsoft Office, we pay that every month. We pay for your email addresses, that's part of Microsoft 365. We have the website posted off-site, that costs us $300 a year. We moved that out of here, last year, wasn't it? Yeah, right. And, computer repairs, if we've got any. Some years, we don't spend any of it. As an example, if you look at through March, on computer repairs, we've only spent $300. Last year, we spent $780. So it's there if we need it, but if we don't need it, we don't use it. And then, of course, the domain names, the internet connection with Spectrum that we pay for. So we didn't really change much here, and I think you know, if you're wanting to get the website 100% ADA compliant, it's gonna cost you a lot of money and you'll never do it.
No, don't, I'm sorry if I gave that impression. I'm just saying, you know, there are so many things we could be doing perhaps to leverage IT more. You know, we're going with this interactive PDF stuff, I mean, training for our people to use, you know, the spreadsheet, Excel, databases a little more effectively. We're talking about configuration management for the Muni code stuff. We get our IT budget. I'm just saying, does that make sense to us? Dave, does that make sense?
You know, I'm looking at, it's basically things that aren't recurring every year is where you're saving your money. There's a lot of things that happened last year that haven't happened this year or won't happen next year. That's what I'm seeing, is how it's dropping out.
And how did you reduce Bright House since
I didn't-
1900?
well-
1500?
Well, I'm looking at what we spent the year before was 1,200
Okay,
and where we're at, so I'm,
we won't hit 19 probably.
It's $125 a month or something like that.
yeah, I'm looking at what we're getting paid for, you know, as opposed to, we're just gonna throw a number in there. So, you know, I'm looking at it more that way.
Is there a line item in here for training? Getting smarter?
Not in IT, no. Mainly because we don't really have we have training in each of the departments for the person that they can use it for things, but not specifically IT, unless you feel we should put something in there.
I'm just asking, so I mean, it's dependent on everybody taking their own initiative to learn a new system or...
Well, you know, most of the staff, I would say, is competent in office for the most part. I still ask a lot of questions, but, you know, no, I'm kidding. I asked Melanie a lot of questions about Excel and stuff, but, you know, most of the staff is pretty proficient in our office suite. I use it for everything I submit to you at the council, so,
What's the corporate experience on that sort of thing? Are you continuing
Microsoft
investing?
Office has been around for so many years now that it's pretty much second nature if you know how to use a computer. You've had Word and Excel and PowerPoint forever. So we don't do any training for our employees. Basically, it's sort of a requirement. Hey, you know Word? Yeah. Okay, you're hired.
and if we would need some training, we'd figure out a way to take care of that.
Yeah, now the Adobe Suite or Acrobat, how fast did you learn that, Patty?
Wasn't that like 2 months?
That quick?
It was very fast. I mean, I don't know everything
Right,
about it, but yeah.
it's another Windows program.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, you pick up these programs, it's kind of like, you know, the things we can do in the parking meter thing. There's things in there that you can do, you can get reports and things of that nature. So you just learn it really by trial and error if you use it.
Now, if it was, say, an accounting package, something like that, I would say absolutely.
Well, that's what I'm doing with QuickBooks right now.
Making them train everybody?
That partially,
Well,
but,
it is.
you know, I keep asking her a bunch of questions about, well, how come this is this way and it's over there? But we have it networked now. So, you know, we have the opportunity to go in there and look at it, which is a good thing. You know, and up until 3 months ago, Melanie, you had to go ask her for everything. I can print stuff off at big bills and things. She
Can you
laughs
come
at.
in to me and ask me why it looks like
And with the potential outsourcing on the financial, will we still need Network QuickBooks, or will they be bringing that
No,
themselves?
they would still use that.
They'll still use ours, they
Yeah.
would be using their own system.
No, they would use that, and you want that because, you know, we have things like purchase orders, and, you know, how we make our payments, we still want that. We don't want to send it to an accounting service.
It's part of your daily routine.
Right, yeah, you want that still. So, without further ado, the next one is law enforcement, which that's a really big one here. It's went up about 3 point, I think that percent may be off a little bit according to the sheriff, but the number's right. It's going up about 3.6%.
And I will, Lynn already knows this, but I'll let everybody else know this, just because we were trying to look at everybody's contract, I took it upon myself to discuss with my favorite person, George Kritikos of Clearwater, along with his police chief, would they be able to, since they're already going to Sand Key, which is part of Clearwater, can they work it down for another 2 miles? They have no interest. So essentially, Sheriff's not listening to this, don't listen to this, don't listen to this. Sheriff is the only game in town, okay, so we're paying this increase, that's it. Lynn and I have discussed it, the other police departments that are smaller by us, Indian Shores, Bel Air,
Indian Rock.
yeah, they wouldn't
Bluffs.
add anything to, it would be like when we had our own police force, which would probably wind up costing us a lot more than what we're paying right now. Largo would be the only other big police department that would be able to service us. I think they're too far away to get a decent response over here, so I think we pretty much have the sheriff at this point, and everybody likes the sheriff, everybody's been really happy with the services, so it was never about the services, but if there was a way that there was any kind of savings or potential savings, it at least would have been a discussion point for us as council, but it's not happening, so we've done everything we really can do unless somebody else has police that they know.
Yeah, and realistically, we really only had 2 opportunities. It would be Clearwater, because they touch us, and Bel Air, because they touch us. You couldn't get Largo, they gotta touch you. And every place else, it's the sheriff. And I don't get very many complaints about the sheriff.
I got one today, but I'll go over that.
Yeah, and I know, I probably already know
You know
about
it.
that. Somebody ran a stop sign.
Yep.
And they thought they shouldn't have got a ticket for running a stop sign. But,
22nd Street.
yeah. But this guy wasn't on Louisa this time. So, and he came in. Same time, okay. Yeah, I forgot to mention that when we were going over today.
But overall, I mean, we're real satisfied. I think I even mentioned to that individual today, unlike a lot of mayors that have pockets of crime in areas that, you don't even want to go into in their city, we get up in arms here when the lawn cushions were getting stolen at somebody's condo last month, and they caught that person too. So that actually was good. They actually staked it out and caught the person who was stealing the cushions. So we have a good city.
Yeah, and then the next item is the code enforcement. It's pretty much the same. Actually, it's about $500 lower than last year, but it's pretty much the same, but she's going to take on additional duties. So she's not going to be out full-time trying to be a full-time code enforcement officer, because she's going to pick up some of the slack in some other areas.
I had a question about the item under insurance, life, accidental death, dismemberment, and long-term disability. That line item jumped about $600, and it seems like every other employee's was either constant and/or like yours actually decreased. So why
Melanie, you
why an
probably,
increase
you're
there?
the,
That's because of her age. Her health and her life both went up significantly because she's one of our older employees. Sorry, Laura.
yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, that's really
That's all there
how it
is
works.
to it. So.
There's something I gave you, I've set at your place tonight because the council member asked me some time ago about, what are the other cities paying for, since we're talking about health benefits. Pretty much every city, and I gave you a listing, it looks like this. Actually, I have the pages backwards or something. But anyway, it kind of tells you what the other cities are paying for employees, which for the most part in the county, everybody's paying for employees. And even some of them are paying for dependent coverage, but for the most part, they're paying 100% of the employees' coverage. Unfortunately, we only have, now we only have 5. We only have 5 people on the insurance because there's a thing that's been set up in the city that gives, if you have other health insurance or other things that you have, you can opt out of it and get the stipend. And myself and Kyle have opted out of it. We get the stipend and the city doesn't incur, in Kyle's case, it might be what, $10,000 or $12,000, and he gets a stipend of $7,200. In my case, it would probably be, could be $16,000, and so the city's getting that money back. So that program works pretty good, and if we had the luxury of other employees doing that would save us money. But right now, we pay $63.46 a month for health insurance. That's going to drop to about $53. Does that sound about right, Mom?
Mine's 800.
Okay, so $5,400. And we've tried to stabilize that. It's been that for the last couple of years, actually. This year it went up, I think it was $14 total. So when they come to bring the policy, I always ask them to, this is what I have in the budget. I want to know what I can get for that. Last year it went up $14, so we kept the same plan. But we're always looking at that to make sure that we're getting the best value. Unfortunately, because we're small, we probably don't get the best value. But that's the nature of the beast in this situation. So I think we answered that, and I want to make sure that you kind of got that information about what other cities were paying. Other than that, there's some code enforcement training in here. The Florida Association of Code Enforcement. Laura's taken one level. If they have it in the area, so she doesn't have to travel far, we just try to watch for it. So it's here. We've had a few more magistrate hearings because of code issues with certain people. Mostly short-term rentals, grass, boat lifts. I'm trying to remember what the next one is. Do you guys know? I know one of them is a short-term rental because we have another code hearing coming up.
Do you reflect in here, I mean, I know the loser pays on that deal, and so do we reflect in the revenue side? The
Yeah, and
collections?
Melanie and I have talked about that to kind of be able to clearly delineate that, because as an example, we have, if you go to the second page where it says special magistrate fees, she charges $150 an hour. Most hearings and write-ups are costing us about $300. We collected administrator's fee of $500. If she finds them, then that can be anywhere from $50 to $250 a day for however long it takes. Something that's happened like a short-term rental, it's after the fact, so that's called irreparable. It's too late. Our fine currently is $1,000 for that. So the short-term rental is paying a $500 fee for the magistrate and paying us a fine of $1,000. I'm gonna do a little more research, because I'm gonna recommend that we change that irreparable fine for a second incident to a higher level. Because generally speaking, what happens, it's the same guy. I got one down by Councilmember Gaddis on Bay Shore, just around the corner from you. He's done it twice. No, 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. And, unfortunately, the way our ordinance reads, it's only $1,000. But I don't want to...
It's profitable in a week's rent, too.
Yeah, because he's getting $500 a day in this instance.
It's a cost of business now.
So he rents it for a week, he's got $3,500, he pays us $1,500. But I think if we can legally elevate the fines for, which I don't think it will affect our short-term rental issue at all, because we don't want to touch that ordinance. No, not at all. So, I think from code enforcement, we're doing a much better job than we used to. We have a lot of lots that they didn't used to cut the grass, now they're on an abatement notice. Guess what? They cut their grass now. Because if they
We
don't,
still, even with this change this year, I know you've been using her, do other stuff even already, and now it will be more so. Will we still be able to get, I don't want to, Pam Dunn here, she's not a violator, but I don't want to tip off our hand to all citizens, but we're still going to do some weekend patrols, right? Because the fun starts, it seems like, on the weekend.
Right,
here with
right.
the code.
and once we get situated in the shuffle, I think we'll have a better handle on that. But I do think that we're going to give some of these people some more work to do, and maybe we'll talk about that a little later, about doing something else for them additional, as far as their base salary. That's future. And then the last item is another, pretty much, that's the price.
Under contract, you have no choice.
It's under contract. They haven't come to me yet for because they are eligible each year to come and ask us. Melanie probably has been through that with them a few times. They're eligible to come and ask for an increase based on a CPI. But we have built into the trash charge and the fee that we have to pay the county for billing and things of that nature. We built that in, so whatever negligible fee, I don't think we're going to have to raise anything at this point. And then, Melanie, you can kind of talk a little bit about that, because in the past we've done that, raised it, and then it takes care of it for a few years.
But we just did that last year.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Okay. So the last thing, I gave you the revised capital thing, so capital budget. So we took out the generator and made some adjustments, so that's there for you. And then I'm going to ask Melanie to kind of go over this sheet with you to show you where we're at today as far as the proposed budget.
Before we go into this, let me just call a timeout. We'll be going for 2.5 hours. Does anybody need a break?
Heck,
Heck yeah.
Okay.
5 minutes is enough? 5 minutes, Dave?
Yes.
Okay, 5
Sorry,
minutes.
I'm running.
7:58. You can ask, you don't have to wait for me to say.
Raise your hand.
And Melanie's going to talk to you about the millage and what have
Village. Okay, I got the preliminary tax roll from the property appraiser. The final roll will be available until July 1st. So, this pretty green page in front of you is based on the preliminary taxable value for 2019. And what that will produce is, if we keep the millage rate the same, it will produce $1.1 million in ad valorem. If we go to the rollback rate, which will be a reduction of 4.15%, it would give us 1.06, which is exactly what we collected this year. So we would lose out on almost $46,000 by reducing the millage rate. The budget that you have prepared and that's been given to you is based on the millage rate of 0.0394. And if you look at this document here that's got the general fund operating budget, you'll see that up at the top it's got ad valorem of 1.106 mils. And based on budget with finance outsourced, that gives us general fund revenues of 2.281 million, but with expenditures of 2.69 million. So in order to balance this budget, even with finance outsourced, we would have to borrow $409,384 from undesignated fund balance. And that's with transferring almost $735,000 over the capital projects fund to complete its projects. So any questions on millage rate, ad valorem, undesignated fund?
When I spoke to the tax assessor, I think it was 4.7, 4.8 for the overall assessed value increase on our properties this year. I think it was 4.8.
4.81.
Yeah, 81. And so then you're advocating a potential rollback here of 4.15?
I'm not advocating it, I'm just showing you what it would be.
Right, well, yeah.
The budget has been predicated on keeping the millage rate the same. If you were to go to the rollback rate, you would have to increase your borrowing or your withdrawing from undesignated fund balance, this 46,000, so it would go from 409,000 to 456,000 dollars. And we've been doing that every year. We've been using undesignated funds to balance the budget. And see, last year, what did we have? 690, that's capital projects. 307,000 in the prior year, I think it was close to 600,000. So eventually, there's not going to be much in the way of undesignated fund balance to continue using. So you just, you can do that, but you need to be aware that, and there are minimum requirements from the state. You have to maintain 20% of your operating fund expenditures in the undesignated fund, and right now that's $538,000. We currently have undesignated funds that are available for use of 2.253, and then if you back out the 300 and, oh goodness, the 409, and then you've got 1.9, and then if you back out the 538, it brings you down to about 1.4 million. So it's up to the council as far as, when you're deciding what you want to do with setting the millage rate. It's not something that needs to be decided tonight, but it will be in the July 29th council meeting is when we set the tentative millage rate. Now, the millage rate can still be changed from that meeting, but it can only be lowered. So when you're setting a tentative millage rate, you want to be sure that it, like if you were to say, oh, let's set it at the rollback rate, but then some big project comes in, you cannot put it back up to where it's at. So typically what we do when we set the tentative millage rate is we either keep it at what it's at or we raise it slightly, even though we may be proposing a budget with a lower rate. So we need to keep that in mind as well.
If I hear you correctly, We're basically tapping into the reserves so that we can make our capital expenditures in future years here. And sooner or later, that train is going to hit the station. And that's be about 2 more years, 2.5, 3 years
Well,
probably.
it depends, and the thing that we need to remember too is like, for instance, in the 2018-19 budget, we budgeted $307,000 to balance the budget. I know that we are going to need to use some of that, but I don't know if we'll need to use all of it. You won't know until the end of the year, we do closing entries. So anything less than $307,000 is going to roll back into the undesignated fund. So it could, but we're pretty close on this budget. So, you know, we need to keep that in mind. Sometimes things happen and we go over that. But that's why I always put it in red, because I'm like, okay, we're in the red on this number. This isn't just a number, this is, you're taking this money out of your savings account, is basically what it is. So you know, you've got your job, you make money, you're paying your mortgage, but you don't make enough money at your job to pay all of your, you know, utilities, and so you're borrowing from a savings account. That's what the red number is. And eventually, your savings account's going to run out of money.
Is there ever, other than, you know, if there's leftover, it goes back in, is there any other times where money goes into that unassigned?
If we receive money that was unbudgeted, for instance, last year, we received FEMA money greater than we anticipated, greater than we budgeted, and so that was extra money that went into your undesignated fund balance, but, you know, you're talking $10,000, something like that. So anytime, you know, a surprise lump of money shows up.
Doesn't happen often.
It doesn't happen often.
It's not something you depend on, or...
No, you definitely don't depend on surprise money showing up.
You basically live in hand to mouth right now, and you know, there's a burn rate and a date when, just like the mayor says, the train pulls into the station and there.
Yeah, just to clarify that, Melanie said after we cover what we have now plus our 20% requirement, there's about 1.4 there. So in the current scenario, leaving the millage rate alone, we're going to burn another 400,000 of that, so we're down to $1 million. You know, long term, we're going to have to look at the millage rate long term, because, you know, our biggest priority right now is the stormwater, and that's what the residents want that fixed. You know, at some point in time, we're going to run out. And I will tell you, because we were notified, we did not get the FEMA grant for this year that we were hoping for next year. We'll find out what that is, what the reason is. They're going to send us something. I personally think it's the benefit cost analysis, because we struggle with that. We struggle with talking to SwiftMud about getting that money, because we're not a regional system. And so, you know, the council's got to, you know, I know some people want to roll the taxes back, but I think you're talking at the current millage rate, a house that pays the city, which is a misnomer, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. You know, there's like 17 mills on our tax bill. Well, only 2 of that mills goes to the city. All the city council is controlling is that 2 mills. They're not controlling the 7.8 mills that the school district gets, or the 6 mills, or 5, I think it's 5.72 that the county gets. So you aren't rolling any money of that back, because they're determining that. So, you know, if you look at it, the taxpayer that pays the city, I'll say $1 million house, because I did some calculations, I pulled a couple homes out to see. They're paying the city maybe $1,000 in taxes to the city. A $500,000 house is paying the city maybe $500 in taxes, you know. So a 4% increase is $45 on a home. A $1 million home, it's a $20 increase on a $500,000 home. So, you know, I think people have to understand that to be able to realize that, hey, you want us to try to prevent as much as we can. Well, these stormwater projects that we're trying to do, fixing the streets and things of that nature, they aren't cheap. And
I think we need to get ahead of this though, because the residents understand that if you want to tax us more, that's fine. Tell us why. Don't just go sticking it in a general fund so that you can, you know, move the shells around. So my concern is, why don't we get ahead of the curve now so that we can be prepared to start marketing this? Because I think the writing's on the wall that we need to do something, because we're spending down the pot. We need to know, based on our projections of property value increases, any unforeseen circumstances, I mean forecasted trends, how long do we have before we need to seriously consider bumping up this millage rate? And I think that's within the realm of possibility. We can do that, but we need to start doing it now, because we can start telling people, hey, if you want this project done, if you want the sewers, you need this, the street repairs, stuff like this, we run out of money here, so we need to start ramping up and considering.
yeah, and
As you were saying that, I just was chuckling to myself, not at what you were saying, but this comes up at about the end of our terms, about 2.5 to 3 years out. And it would be really, I mean, I'm not suggesting we spend a pot here, but we're going to leave it either in a disaster for the next group, or we're going to catch hell from the residents for a big tax increase when that happens. So
And-
this is something that, you know, this is an eye-opener here to hear this, because, I mean, you know, I don't care whether we, you know, look, I ran on a whole thing of we're going to keep things flat. Okay, we're flat. It's still going to go back 46,000, and we're still going to run out 2.5 to 3 years down the road, no matter what we do here. So that part, if you know, if you want, and I think something Glenn said, and I'll quote a state legislator who spoke to us at one of the meetings. And he said, people don't mind paying taxes if they understand where the money's going for. And I think if you tell them it's going into a big pot and we'll spend it down the road, they're going to say, yeah, right, thanks, don't want to do that. But if you say, listen, remember the flood project that we were talking about? It's getting built this year. Remember the 7th Street project? It's getting done this year. We can sell that. If we just throw it into a big, you know, fund. Now, we have this fund, but maybe the idea is to make sure that we're not tapping this fund so badly, and that we can push this thing out longer than 2.5, 3 years. I mean, that's the way I would consider it, if I were ever to consider increasing taxes, because it has to be earmarked and it has to be spent on the capital improvements. I don't want to see it going to televisions and junk and city.
well, and I think that's dependent on two things, really. The staff following, you know, the council's objectives going down. You know, you're telling me, or the residents are telling us as a group, that what's our top priority? It was stormwater, streets, curbs, those things. Okay, so that tells the staff and it tells the council, hey, we need to work on these projects. And we have been making a concerted effort to work on it. In your packet on Friday, you're going to get updated numbers on the stormwater projects. You're going to get a map that shows all the flooding and where we can go do stuff long term. But, you know, we're going to continue to prioritize those projects. I don't think the city as a whole really is concerned if the taxes started increasing a little bit, if they know that we're fixing stuff. I really don't think they would care. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, you know, the people I talk to, hey, if you're going to stop my house from being flooded, or you're going to at least stop the backflow intrusion or things of that nature, they're not going to be upset about it. And it's negligible if you look at it. Now, You know, $45,000 isn't a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, it's nothing, really. It's worst case scenario, $45 a resident, okay? On an annual basis, roughly.
Well, is there any way that we could, like we do with the code enforcement, send out some kind of flyer explaining all this? Like saying if you had $1 million home, you would only have to pay 45?
I actually did that in 2012.
Okay.
I suggested that we raise the millage rate because the millage rate had been lowered in 2006-07, right before the market crashed. And what should have happened was it should have rolled. Like, this is rolling back, but when property values go down, it rolls forward. So if we had rolled forward every year and been organic, we wouldn't have gotten into a big hole. But what happened was the millage rate was lowered then, and nobody touched it until 2012. And so we lost well over $1 million in revenue over that period of time. This year, we've just broken even, okay? So it seems like we're paying a lot more taxes, but we've just now broken even over all the years that the property values were lower and the millage was never adjusted. And yes, that's exactly what I did. I just grabbed a couple of properties throughout the city in different areas, and you white out, who the people are, and I said, this is from the property appraisers. This is, and just the millage for us. This is what your bill is. If we raise the millage rate, and it was a fairly decent raise, it went from 1.993 to 2.0394. This is how much it's going to cost you for your various different properties. And it was so, compared to your whole property tax bill, when you're looking at what the school and the general fund and all of that charges you, it was such a tiny amount that it passed unanimously. The other thing that I wanted to mention was when you're talking about, well, we don't want this money to just roll into an empty pot to do. What I want to make you guys aware, when you're looking at this, when you're looking at the general fund budget, and you're seeing that negative $409,000, go to the back page and look at transfers out to the capital projects fund. That's $734,900. What that means is the general fund is making money. The general fund is self-sustaining, but it has to borrow in order to fund capital projects, and that is true for every single year. Every single year, we have borrowed less than what we've transferred to the capital projects fund. So the general fund is supporting your projects, your infrastructure, your roads, your sewers, your streets, all of that. So there's no worry that, oh, we're just going to tax you more and it's falling into the general fund and we're having a party at the Bel Air Country Club. It's not. That money is all of it's going directly to the capital projects fund, which is all your projects for the city.
We understand that now because you explained it well, but me before, as a layperson, would know that. Like if I saw it going to a general fund, I would think it's just general for fun, kind of thing.
Right.
So I think in that pamphlet, you do all that and then say this money will be allotted to the number one project, Storm, and just kind of, I hate to say it, but it's addressed to me, dumb it down a little bit. So it's kind of like state the obvious. I think that would help and would probably pass you in.
Literally 100% of any increase would go all to the capital projects fund. It's all capital projects, so.
No, I get that, just if you say, but we would use that money for stormwater. And
right, yeah.
Instead of saying going to capital, I think if you just
I think
narrow it down.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what we would need to do is saying it's going to the capital projects fund, which supports these projects.
Yeah,
Because
that's
if I
fine.
say it's going to your stormwater funds, then we're legally obligated to not use it for anything else.
No,
So-
that's a good idea, the
Yeah.
capital project supports these projects. I just, as long as they know it's going to the streets and not.
Yeah, so, I mean, if anybody didn't quite pick up on that, that's.
No, I did.
That's been the case for every year that we used our designated fund. It's all been to support capital projects.
No, I agree with Glenn. I think people would be okay as long as we explained it. And I think maybe if we're sure ahead of time, maybe before we set it, so it's not like we did this behind your back and, oh, here, by the way. It's kind of like, this is our plan, this is why, you know, kind of like we want you to be informed before we, the few of us, decide on your
We're
time.
gonna set this in a public meeting, so we're gonna get
Right.
feedback from the citizens.
Exactly,
on
but
this.
send it out before the public meeting,
Yeah.
before we set it, so
Right.
they feel like they're a part of it.
One of the concerns, and I'm doing this strictly from memory, Melanie, you might know the numbers better than I, but I went through them a lot during the campaign. And as I remember, 5 years ago, our tax revenue collections was about 700,000, and now we're just pushing over 1 billion. So that's a considerable increase in 5 years. It's more than the cost of living, and it's significant because the property values have went up so much. So the tax, I called it the tax haul, but the tax haul from the citizens has been going up steadily. That's a lot of money that it's been going up. So that money is being spent, and yet we're still in a deficit situation here. And that was my concern, is the fiscal responsibility, is how do we get ourselves not in a deficit situation? Because of the huge increases in property values, even without touching the millage, there has been huge tax increases, almost 50%.
There has been a huge tax increase from 5 years back. But if you go back another 5 years, it was a huge loss, huge loss. So those increases are really just bringing you up to level. You had property taxes that were here, and they went like that, and then they started to come back. So when you're looking at property taxes from here to here, this is a massive increase. But if you look at property taxes from here to here, they're the same.
Right, but that's because we had a market crash in there. I mean, that was what dropped that, because for once, the property values actually went down, you know, which normally they have not.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Your property values are literally the same as they were over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago. So, yes, if you wanted to start going organic now, you could. However, how are you going to fund capital projects?
I guess what my question would be, and this is a question, not a declaration, but how are we doing it when we were making 700,000?
We stopped doing capital projects.
There's
There was
the problem.
that literally, capital projects came to us, streets were being resurfaced, nothing was getting done.
That's exactly why the city looks like it did.
Correct.
That's why you have to start doing it now. Sorry.
Yeah.
Pamela Gunn, I have a question. We had a huge capital project, and that's called this building. This place is a huge albatross, we're paying over $200,000 a year in debt. We've got reserves, and we're housing just a few people here. So I say you do something with this building. Whether you house, not you, I'm just saying.
Looking at me, I'm okay, sell it, build condos, put everybody in the house on Cedar Drive. You'll make all kinds of, that's my suggestion.
I'm not making a joke.
I know, but I'm saying, honestly,
I'm
yes,
saying this place is a huge albatross, it's costing $200,000 in debt. We're building reserves for roofs. What's the overhead for utilities? You know, are we paying $200-300 a year just to
Debt
stay in
service,
this building? I mean, you have to address something like this.
Well, the revenues for this building are decreasing projected next year. Now, in the debt service shows an increase. Is that because of the undergrounding, the $124,000?
The debt service is massively up, because yes, you have 3 new bonds now. That's for the undergrounding.
Yeah,
Yeah, the 209 is the debt service on just this building. The additional 124 is for the underground.
yes.
Okay, that was.
Well, the undergrounding is funded, right? That's just a wash.
Yeah, we have
bar, one-
assessments that pledge to that.
Yeah, right.
The city's not on the hook for that.
But the 209 comes out of, that
That's
209
the
is,
debt load on this building.
that 209 is part of an ongoing deficit every year. So if I'm understanding that we have about a 300,000 plus deficit each year that we're transferring net over in the red to the capital fund in the end, 200 of that is this building, and that's just debt service on this building alone. So that, I think Mrs. Gunn raises a very viable point, is do we need this at this point? I know this is not a decision council can make, this is something that the citizens actually have to vote on, but, you know, this is a very valuable piece of real estate. it's a very expensive piece of real estate to maintain.
Yeah, but what are you, what are you proposing? The city's got to operate from somewhere.
Well,
Don't you have to have a brick and mortar building legally?
you never
I mean,
break
you
a
know,
mortar building,
I'm
you guys
I'm
will.
asking.
Butler
Well-
sure doesn't.
Huh?
Butler sure doesn't.
Well, I understand that, they had to go to the legislature to meet out of their city. You know, so, you know, I guess my question is, what are you saying? Build another building, is that what you're saying?
The point just came up is, do we need this building? Yeah, you could build another building, a much smaller building. A building that houses the offices for, what do we have now, 6 people that actually work here? 5 people?
Right.
I mean, I know you showed me the
Well,
sheriff,
7.
no offense to the sheriff, but sheriff's got a beautiful office on Olmerton. So sheriff doesn't have to have an office here, I mean.
Well, it's part of the contract, they have an office space.
That's something that could be changed too, because we do that each year. So, I mean, you know, sheriff doesn't have an office across the street.
No, I understand what you're saying, but, you know, you still got to have another plan.
Well, I don't think we're trying to figure out the specifics, we're just saying we need to think outside the box on this thing. I mean, maybe we start getting a little better at rentals of the facility, or getting creative with what we do with these spaces. I mean, nothing's out of the realm of possibility. We got a huge parking lot outside the marina, maybe you do build a smaller city hall down there and do something with this, who knows? I mean, it's just being thrown out there. We've only got 3 major assets in this city, you know, that marina and this place.
No, you know, I'm not debating that the building is underutilized. And that's part of the reason for me moving some of the rental issue around, because I have a different philosophy that Patty and I have talked about it. I have a little different philosophy in how you market this building. You know, unfortunately, it's cumbersome for Patty to do it. You know, we're just adding things, and I don't think you can do it with email. I think you have to do it with, hey, John, this is Bill, and you've got interest in our building. Can we set up an appointment to come and see it? You know, blah, 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 blah. And unfortunately, because of all the consternation and things that were going on, we weren't following through in a, what would you say, Patty, a cohesive thing other than email.
No,
Right.
there was a time this building that I had it rented every weekend, we were turning people away. But that was my full-time job.
Right.
Also,
So,
on the website though, unfortunately, it just looks like this building is only good for rentals as far as weddings. And
Right.
there's so much more that can be done, but it doesn't come across that well from the
Right.
website.
right.
The other thing, Lynn, is something that you and I discussed, but, you know, as long as we're bringing this up, I mean, and this is something the council could give you with just a proposal. I was here for the ladies' luncheon for the garden club, and then there was somebody who wanted to rent it, and we don't have a sliding scale. So this is a group of women's club type people who are gonna come in and have a luncheon, you know, they're not gonna be having a rough party or, you know, alcohol or anything like that. Yet we have one size fits all mentality where we can say, you know, well, it's whatever it is, $2,000 a night, no, we can't afford that. So what we need to do, if you know, if that's where you wanna market this, we can get you a better rate that you could run it for a luncheon at, you know, a few $100, whatever.
Right,
$500,
right. And-
$700 to a ladies club,
and-
that's easy
and-
money.
You know, that's, you know, I don't know why. I know that there was some proposals brought to the city council that raised the price, which me personally, I thought was ridiculous, but, you know, because maybe some moron did something stupid one time, that's part of doing business in this business, you know? That's my philosophy, but,
You put a clause in for cleanup extra fee later,
Yeah.
They have
trash
that.
it.
you know, that's just part of the deal.
Yeah, you
But
can paint if it's clean.
that, I don't know how it came about, but they raised the price up, and then guess what? Everybody went away, so we've got to take a new tack at this.
Do we have discounts for residents?
Yeah, they're discounted. We only charge you $15.99 instead of $18.99.
Maybe we should look at,
I'm sorry.
maybe we should look at hiring another full-time person to do it. I mean, if she worked it all the time when that was just her sole position.
Well, it wasn't her sole
Is that not
position, she was
an
the city
option?
clerk.
I was the clerk, yeah.
So
but
you were
that's all
still
I
doing
spent
multitasking.
my time doing, yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a different tack
So it
at it,
can
we'll
be
see how it goes, and then I may come back to you and say, hey, I wanna change the structure, or ask you to give me the authority to discount.
I would do it by people. If you have 0 to 20, it's this rate. If you have 20 to 5, I mean, because if it's a garden club, they should spend $1,000. If it's a wedding, obviously, they're gonna need more.
Right.
So, and
Before
also
we-
call those old people that they did rent out routinely, and be like, hey, still interested? Our rate's lowered.
Before I can consider a tax increase, I'm gonna have to see what you have in mind for revenue on this against this year, because I think this is some hard, tough love, if you will, but I mean, I think this has to be looked at, because if we can raise the revenue, then it doesn't encumber us to raise taxes, and, I am absolutely dead against raising taxes if we can help it, so you're gonna get me kicking and screaming into doing it, but we're gonna exhaust every other possibility. This is
Yeah,
a possibility that's right for
Right, I understand that,
Development.
but you still have to look at the fact. We're talking, I don't know what the revenues were when it was really good. Patty, do you know?
Nope.
Do you know, Melanie?
60,000.
Was it that high?
That's pretty good.
Okay. And unfortunately, they raised the price, and what I understand, and maybe Patty can share why they raised the price, was they had a couple incidents. Is that
It was
correct?
and it was someone philosophy that maybe they didn't want to let the building increase the price.
Yeah. So, my position is, just because something happens,
cost of doing business.
it's, it's covered by insurance, there's a lot of things. I mean, you can't nitpick somebody because they did a little spot on the floor, they're paying you a clean fee. You gotta, that's part of doing business. It's like, if you go rent somewhere and one of your guests breaks a door or something, you're gonna be responsible for it. And you gotta look at it in a different way than raising prices to make people go away. And that's unfortunately what happened.
I mean, and honestly, renting out every weekend for $500 a weekend is better than $0 a weekend. Even $200, I mean, is better than nothing,
This is true. So,
something.
but I don't think that's fixing the issue with the capital projects.
Well,
No, but
it
it
will help.
fixes, just.
It helps.
What Melanie just said, 60,000 versus 15,000 this year, I think is what we have budgeted, so there's your $45,000, and now I don't have to increase taxes, and I can keep my promise of lowering the millage rate.
Well-
And we're still in the same boat, so it's something that, again, we have to be
Cognizant.
doing everything we can do. I'm not going back and picking somebody's pocket until we can do everything that we can do.
But that 45,000.
And that's the way that was sold to the people here,
Yeah.
remember that?
Well, I know,
But that
that's a mandate
45,000 is not taking care of a capital project.
not raising it, like, for what she's saying, that's fine for this year, but then 2.5 years down the road, we're gonna be in trouble, so. I'm trying to prevent disaster, I'm thinking about the next council,
And too.
a Girl Scout.
Right, so
Better than
this is
Scout.
something we'll talk about a little more, and I'll see if I can't get Melanie to do something before she leaves.
How many hours is she gonna put in?
A little brochure
Just spend the
about
night here.
what she was talking about, because I did the same thing. I went on the property appraiser and I just picked out 2 houses in the town, and I looked at what that mill was going to do to their taxes, and it's negligible. And then Vice Mayor asked me to kind of clarify, and I spoke to the property appraiser about this. And it was pretty much what I told you, Vice Mayor, was the fact of the matter is, we have no commercial. be honest with you. We have 4 or 5 houses a year that are torn down and rebuilt. So our value is not gonna be to the level that Bel Air Bluffs, Bel Air Shore, when they build a new house, it's like $5 million. Our new house is maybe 2 million, some of them, or $1.5 million. So how that appraisal works is kind of based on that, and unfortunately, we don't get that bang for the buck because we don't have that commercial level. I spoke to the gentleman that actually does the appraisals at the county, and he told me to look into it a little more, but basically he said, what I told the vice mayor was pretty much the situation. You can't manufacture value if, the houses aren't being torn down and rebuilt multiple. And last year, in our CRS, we had 5 houses that were torn down and 5 new houses built. So, our elevation certificate stuff that we have to do.
Mike Quiddy's the property assessor. He addressed us twice, once at the Big C, I think you were there, Mark, for that one.
I've got the guy's name.
Yeah, and also at the Mayor's Council, and that is the exact reason. I mean, we don't have tracts of land that are being developed, we don't have high-rises going in, we're not rezoning motels into high-rises.
Right.
So we're pretty much going single-family to single-family, and we're just not, that's why we're at the bottom. If you look at property appraisal and property increases, it's not that Bel Air Beach is so bad, it's just that we don't have a lot of, what do you get, 5 a year, 4 or 5 a year?
Yeah, the last 2 years, we've got 5. So, that's all we've got. Mayor, do you want to talk about where we went today, just to let them know?
Yeah, we'll let you know, we'll let the town know, but we had some really, something that's been a pet peeve of mine since before I ran, and I've been dealing with Lynn on this. The end of 7th Street, there's a pumping station, a lift station that pumps all wonderful sewage from Bel Air Beach down to, found out it goes to Indian Rocks. I thought it went across the water, but it goes to Indian Rocks, then it goes across the water. For years, one of the first conversations I ever had with Lynn was, what can we do about this? Because it's 24/7, every time there's rain, heavy rain, that there's pumping trucks, and it just goes on and on and on. Residents can't sleep. I've had people crying to me saying, make it go away. And I'm like, I don't know what I can do. So I've been hitting up county commissioners, and my last assault was on somebody actually at Sam's Club. I got the right person, and she got the word to the sewer commission and to the utilities commission. Lynn and I had a meeting today. This was in the works. They kind of suspected that there was an issue, and Lynn had mentioned this the other last year that they might be doing something, but I don't know whether they were on the fence or not. They're not on the fence anymore. They're going to fix that sewer. By next year, we're talking like right after Christmas time, money has been approved. They're starting to send it out for bid, and they're going to basically change the configuration so that, if I understood it correctly, we're going to pump the stuff from 7th Street into a huge holding facility down in Indian Rocks by pump station 190, and it'll sit there and it won't create any kind of back pressure or anything, so they don't need all these trucks, and they won't be running trucks down our blocks anymore. We'll be keeping the residents up. They also were talking about paying attention to the outages when we have power outages, because that pumping station needs electricity to operate. So they were talking about possibly putting something in, but that's not part of this thing, to have a permanent generator, but at least they are aware that there has to be rental generators or temporary generators over there. But the good news is that project, coupled with the one that we're talking about with the flood water, pretty much takes care of the 7th Street problem, which supposedly was unfixable. So it looks like it's going to be fixable this year. So that's a big
Next
thing.
year.
Next year.
So
And
say
that-
this year.
2020. I like the way Lynn said 2020. It's probably 6 months from now. But that doesn't cost us anything for the county project. So we actually got the county to do something. Turned out it was about a $2 million project. I was prepared to argue with them because they gave our friendly Philadelphia Phillies $40 million to fix up their baseball stadium. And my thought was, if you have $40 million for a baseball team that plays here 6 weeks a year, you've got a couple $1 million for my sewer. And they agreed, so we're getting that thing fixed. So that was a big
start
start.
talking about running the power lines from all of our sewer pumping stations to the main line on Mill Boulevard, such as 22nd Bay Shore, the one at Belle Isle and the one at 7th Street.
They didn't seem to have too much issue with those other two pumping stations, so they said they were
When
Yeah.
the power goes out, they have an issue.
Yeah. But those are basically to get it into the gravity system so that it kicks it back up. So they're not as bad as the 7th Street one, which is a major pumping station. It's a,
Well, everything
that's the,
from the island out where I live in Clinton, that all goes to 22nd and Bay Shore, and that goes south from there.
yeah, to us, to 7th Street. It
Mhm.
all comes to us. But we're gonna send it to Indian Rocks under high pressure. Did I say that correctly, Lynn?
Yeah, yeah.
So we had a nice little meeting today.
So,
So we're gonna have the community that next week at the council meeting, but it was kind of great news, so thank you, Matt.
oh, yeah, the only other thing you've got on the agenda, Mayor, is you want to talk about the city attorney selection.
Actually, you were bringing that up. Well, okay,
It's on the agenda.
okay. The city attorney selection, after that last memorable council meeting, we had a resignation from our city attorney, so he's given us notice that he will stay up to and including September 30th. So our original thought was that we wanted to do something for August 1st to have the new attorney present. We actually have 2 extra months if we need that cushion. My personal feeling is let's not use the cushion if we don't have to. As of today, we don't have a single response, but that's nothing to worry about yet on terms of the attorney's response. We think there will be some stuff coming in next week. We'll know for sure the 2nd, it's
Second.
July 2nd. So we'll know before 4th of July. Day after our council meeting, we'll know for certain. My feeling is if it's just a few of them, we have everybody in and do the presentations if they're if they're at least minimally qualified. If we get 10 or 15 of them, like Lynn got with the engineers, then we have to kind of pick through that first in a session here. And not to kill everybody, because, we do have the budget going on, all the other council meetings. The question really is, what's council's feeling in terms of how do we want to work on this? This is critical because I have to book a trip back to New Jersey, and I want to be here obviously for the attorney thing, but once I book it, if we say it's going to be August, it's going to be August. If it's going to be July, it's going to be July. I can't change it once I book it. So I've been holding off really to find out what everyone's pleasure is. I don't have a problem if we wait a month. I don't think we should use September if we don't have to. So, if we want to push it to August, that's fine. We still have a lot of budget responsibility in August, so.
Well, August, you don't have much budget responsibility. It doesn't start till September. August is kind of
We have 2 budget meetings in August.
yeah, next week, not next week, a week from Monday. And then you have the 29th where you set the tentative millage. And then September 5th, 6th, something like that.
Fourth,
Yeah,
first public hearing,
19th or
16th.
something
Yeah.
for the final.
that's when you,
August is trim stuff.
yeah, August is trim stuff, so it's not
You're right.
really, that's more staff deal.
These are staff deadlines, not ours.
Yeah, so,
So if you want, now we also have, before anybody answer this question, you have 8 engineering responses right now?
yeah, what we'll do, we have a process. We'll look through all the proposals, give them some scoring points, and I'll probably bring 3 or 4 to you and recommend approval on. And they'll be based, we have 3 from the current people. All 3 of those have done, and we have 5, I think it's 5 others. And we'll go through them and get a point value, and then take the top 3 or 4, depending on how close they are. And I'll bring that to the city council. I'm probably going to do that in August. Yeah. So, and then once we get your approval, then we'll move forward with doing it. We'll have to send, if it's a different firm, we'll have to send them. If it's not, it's just a matter of rebuilding the contract. So,
We had the same stuff with like 30-day notices and things like that.
yeah, but that's something I can send out. It's not a big deal. But if we use, if it ends up the same firms we have now are good, we'll just see what happens with the ranking process.
So August, we would probably deal with the engineering at the council meeting. With the attorney, the way we envisioned it, maybe if we have a lot of people, we're gonna have to kind of cull it down here with a work session. And then we had promised them a presentation so that they would have a presentation evening where they could make a presentation. Just that would be the only thing I think I would put on the council agenda for that night and make our decision that night. No delay after that, so.
Yeah, I think you've got plenty of time, and it's kind of in the situation where there's no stress on you anymore, really. So doing it in August is not a big deal, but we'll have to wait and see what we get next week. It's only 2 or 3, then,
Deadline is Tuesday, you said, the
Yeah.
2nd?
Tuesday's the deadline.
yeah. And I'll send you out a list of who it is, because we'll have to make copies of the proposals.
Have we heard from anybody? Like, are we sure we're gonna get some?
I've talked to one person and really all they asked about was, because they thought that the city attorney was gone, and they thought we might need temporary services. And that's the only thing I've heard.
Keep his
Well,
He's
that's,
expressed interest. This person is most likely.
that person I know.
Lynn knows him, he has a very good reputation, I've heard from him, so.
I was just wondering if we get no applications, then.
Well, then I might be calling some people up and saying, hey, what's your deal, buddy?
Yeah.
Because he's surrounded us.
And we need a backup plan for that.
Well, if it came to that, I think worst case, if we had to press it, I think we could ask Jackie to help us out. I
Just don't want to be left high and dry.
No, and I don't think we will be. You don't know, people bring these RFPs, RFQs in. I mean, even the bids, they bring them in 2 minutes before it's due. That's just what they do. They're sitting in the parking lot changing
Lawyers always
numbers.
Now, regardless of the people who come forward and say, hey, I want to be considered for this, are we going to sit down and have a discussion on what we are looking for and value and weigh, or are we just going to make this a subjective, hey, come tell us?
That's what I thought we would do, the work session, to review it. I mean, and, at least review the people that, if we have I'm gonna assume that we have 4 or 5 qualified people, and we would review, let's say we had 10 people, we have to cut it down to 4 or 5 for the presentations, but I think we should have a work session here to discuss it amongst ourselves and see what we like, what we don't like, and what we're looking for, and then, if somebody's gonna do a presentation that's gonna wow us, I'm sure, 4 that are totally qualified, but I think whoever we invite here should be qualified. If we don't like them, don't waste their time.
Yeah, that, I would agree with that. It's kind of like the engineering proposals. If you got 10 of them and you really only need 3 or 4 of them, you pick the cream of the crop and tell the others, yeah, you're not going to make the short list. And they know that. So,
Do we want, I don't know if we can make the decision tonight only because we don't know what's coming in next week. You and I both know this one attorney. If he was the only person, if his reputation is as good as his credentials, he's an excellent candidate, but, he hasn't applied yet, so.
yeah, we don't know. Really, the worst case scenario would be, or not the worst case, we get the proposals in. I don't know when you're thinking about going out of town in July, but I think the way I understood it was in late July.
Yeah, mid to late.
Okay, so if we needed to have a preliminary meeting before that, we could do that, and then everybody could take the proposals. And a couple weeks later, 1st of August, we come back and have a more formalized meeting.
We could have a special work on a special council session.
Yeah. So I think your pressure is off. And, I've told the mayor that the pressure's off on us right now.
Once we get applicants.
Well, don't go there, John.
I'm not worried.
Okay.
So we'll defer on that and see where we stand on next Tuesday, and kind of, if we get a lot, we'll have a,
Maybe have a preliminary.
we're probably gonna have a special meeting and go over whatever we've got, basically.
Yeah. Then you got a month to kind of mull it over.
And then push it into August, but not into September. I
No.
don't think September if we don't have to.
No.
Anybody else have any items?
Wore you out, I'm sure.
Anybody want to adjourn?
Yes.
Yeah, we're done. Anybody against it? We're gone, we're adjourned.